What's that saying, Cole? We are so back. We're back. You and me together. No, we're back. We're back. Yeah, we're back.
Where did I get that line from? The he's back. Where's that from? You should know that.
We're back. That's Texas.
Oh, okay.
That was one of the Texas quarterbacks a couple of years ago. We're back. Or you could be thinking of Cam Newton when Cam Newton said, "I'm back," and his voice broke while he was in the middle of doing it.
That. We're back.
Yeah, we're back because we were not on together for a week while you were out, and then we were kind of all over the place for a week, and then I've been out for a week, but we're back. The two of us together. Yeah, feels so good.
Feels good, man. It does.
Yeah, and not in a Chuck Mangione way, but in the real, like, we're face to face kind of way. Welcome back, Tolos, which means turn it on, leave it on. It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. And you know what else is back? Not just us. Football is back.
Baby. Let's
High
go.
school football is back. College football is back. We've got Florida State and we've got Georgia Tech facing off in Dublin, Ireland this weekend. And we've got the College Football Upset Picks Challenge back this week as well. We'll get you details on that as we get deeper and deeper into the show today. But welcome back, you Tolos who turn it on and leave it on. Look at this, man. Look how many messages have already popped up on the stream.
Yeah, they're talking junk in there. Did you see what started it?
Oh, who started
it? T-Swizzle. We had our draft last night.
You know
Fantasy draft?
T-Swizzle, you're out of the league.
And he said,
out of the league.
Y'all about to take some L's. I got news for you. I think I had a pretty good draft. And by the way, we'll get to that in the next segment. But
yeah,
I'm not taking any L's. Hate to tell you. But it's not happening.
Regardless, I appreciate Zenny. I appreciate T-Swizzle. I appreciate Madcraft. All of you guys who are already in the stream commenting already, we appreciate you. If you haven't yet joined in with the stream, search for us at The Fan Upstate on Facebook, on Twitter, or on YouTube. We're across all those different platforms. You can jump into the stream and chop it up with other Tolos as well.
And real quick, before we get into the first segment, how bad, how dumb is it that opening weekend of college football Diesel, the first game, we're excited, the anticipation, and guess what? It's not even on our home turf.
It sucks. What are we doing in America?
Country.
Do we really think that people in foreign countries, in Ireland, do we really think they care about American college football?
God.
No,
they
don't. They don't. I don't even know if they have colleges in the same sense in Ireland that they have in the United States. I don't know if they have college athletics. I don't know if anybody over there even cares about college athletics.
They don't even care,
in Ireland.
Man.
But hey, what I mean, Roger Goodell has done it. He's sold the soul of the NFL to get games all across Europe. I guess college football is doing the exact same thing. And man, I'm really hoping that the ACC is getting a fat chunk of change to send these kids from Tallahassee and from Atlanta all the way over. You realize those Atlanta and Tallahassee are like, what, an hour and a half apart?
Not far.
They're not far
at all.
They could save so much money and just play the game somewhere there in the Panhandle, and then we don't have to deal with all this crap.
Send them overseas.
What a stupid decision.
I hate it.
Stupid decision.
I hate
Here's what scares me, Cole, is that we're going to start seeing games, college football games, popping up in London, in Spain, in Germany. They're going to do all the same things, all the same stupid tricks that Roger Goodell is trying to pull, and it's going to ruin another thing about college football. It's going to start taking home games off of out of campuses and sending them overseas. I mean, this feels like shipping the auto industry, overseas.
For whatever reason, I don't mind it as much in the NFL, but college is like a no-no. Like NFL, y'all want to go play overseas, whatever, right? But college games overseas, that just doesn't make sense at all. That's our game.
I don't feel the same connection going to see a game at Bank of America Stadium or down at Mercedes-Benz Stadium as I do going to Clemson, going to Columbia, going to Boone. Those are college towns.
Sure.
That's what makes college football so special, is the college town. It's going back to a place that you have so much love for and so many memories in, or lack of memories if you party too hard. I don't know. I'm not here to judge you. But welcome into the show. Cole, I was wondering here, as well as we look at some of the Power Conference preseason media poll rankings.
Yeah.
If the favorite is not going to win those conferences, who's going to do it? Who's it going to be? If not for the favorite, then who? That's the question here to start the show. And of course, all of this is based on media member voting at their individual media days. And all of them voted on what they thought was going to happen at the end of the season. So this was not a preseason power poll. This was meant to be a prediction of the conference finish at the end of the season. So they couldn't just look and say, oh, this team's got a really good quarterback, let me vote for them. They had to actually think about it a little bit, right? They had to look down their schedules and try to make a decision who they thought was going to come out of each conference the least scathed. But we can't let any of those teams win. We can't let any of the teams that were voted number one by the media, by their media members.
Tough, you know?
If not for the favorite, then who? And I would love for you Tolos to be playing along as well on Facebook, on Twitter, or on YouTube. Jump in the comments section. First of all, I'll read you who the members of the media voted in each conference 1 through 5. Okay, it's a pretty safe bet that a team that's 1 through 5 is ultimately going to win the conference overall. Anybody halfway down or farther, they don't really stand a chance to win this thing. So let's start right here in our own backyard with the ACC. Numbers 1 through 5. This is what the media decided the conference was going to be by the end of the season. Number 5, Louisville. Number 4, NC State, who got 8 first-place votes. Number 3, Miami, who got 17 first-place votes. Number 2, Clemson with 55. And Florida State with 81 first-place votes in the conference. This, again, voted on by the ACC media members. You and I were there, Cole. We were allowed to vote in this poll. The question is, though, if Florida State can't win it because they're out, if not for the favorite, then who? Who's it going to be? Who's going to win the ACC?
So you would think, one might think that this would be an easy answer. One might think that if you ask, if not Florida State, then who? One would say Clemson's the obvious answer. And I'll tell you, you may be surprised by my answer, but I don't think you can go discount Miami just quite yet.
Really?
Yeah. So I think, like I said, if you want to just give the easy answer, you say Clemson. However, I don't know that we're here to give easy answers.
What is it about the Canes that you like so much?
Well, I think the quarterback at Cam Ward, I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. Now, here's the reality of it. I don't think Miami's defense will be as good as Clemson's defense. When we talk about defensive units, I like Clemson in 2024. Lost some starters, but they're still going to be supposed to be a very good defense. I like the quarterback situation at Miami going into the season. Here's the reality of it, though, Diesel, with Cam Ward at Miami and Cade Klubnik at Clemson. You and I would probably both agree that you like Cam Ward, I like Cam Ward heading into the season, but the reality of it is the game's not played on paper. What happens if Cam Ward doesn't live up to expectations and Cade Klubnik and Garrett Riley get that machine back to being well-oiled like Clemson's used to it being? Then the obvious answer would be Clemson. I do think Miami's a sneaky team in this position when you're saying if not Florida State, then who? However, to answer your question, I'm going to go with the safer bet in Clemson.
Really? Okay. I thought, man, you had me on the edge of my seat this whole time. I thought you were going to go Miami on this. And here's why it's not Miami. Because Mario Cristobal is the head coach.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Miami has always had an abundance of talent. It's ebbed and flowed a little bit over the years. They've always had talent, but they haven't really been able to find the right coach to put it together. Put it this way. Mario Cristobal, through 2 seasons, has the exact same record as Randy Shannon at Miami. In 2007 and 2008, 12 and 13. Mad Kraft over there beating his chest a lot. You're going to get bruised, my friend, because you're beating your chest for a dude that has a sub 500 record in 2 years. I understand that Cam Ward is great. I understand that he's got talent out the wazoo, and any other coach seems like would be able to get a national championship caliber performance out of that roster. But for some reason, Mario Cristobal has not been able to get it done through 2 seasons. I'm not saying that he can't do it this year, but I don't have faith in him to do it, which is why I'm going the same way you did with the safe bet with Clemson. They're at preseason number 2. It's year 2 under Garrett Riley. I expect to see Cade Klubnik take a good step forward. I don't see him struggling like he did in 2023. He'll bring some of those big numbers up, the completion percentage. He's got his full complement of wide receivers back. I see Cade Klubnik easily surpassing the 3,000 yard mark, which is not really a huge jump. He had 20, I think it was like 2,850 or something like that last year. I expect him to land in that 23 to 25 touchdown range. Yeah. Interceptions, he wasn't bad. He wasn't really loose with the football last year. He only threw 8 in 2023, so pretty good, not elite, not the best of the best. Carson Beck threw 6 last year. Jaden Daniels, who won the Heisman, threw just 4 interceptions in 2023. But I do think that Cade Klubnik is going to take a step forward, maybe not a leap, maybe not a pole vault forward, but I do think he takes a step forward in his second year under Garrett Riley. And those stats rise just a little bit.
Yeah.
And truthfully, I didn't really have to look at Florida State too much in this. I know that we can't pick them, but I wouldn't have picked them anyway because it's DJU.
I do agree with Madcraft where he says the schedule makes sense to go with the Canes. And if you were to choose Miami, I would absolutely understand why, because as you and I have talked about, outside of that Florida game, they're not going to be tested. They have Florida State at home on October 26th, Diesel. Mm-hmm. So, they have Duke, Georgia Tech, Wake, and Syracuse in the season. I do agree with Madcraft when you look at the schedule of the Miami Hurricanes, it sets up nicely for them to be able to go on a run and maybe get into the college football playoff. And we'll get into college football predictions later because I had mine last week, and I want to see how you react to them, Diesel. The difference is, I think Clemson, having been there, and to your point about Dabo, to your point about Cristobal, I think the experience in 2024 with Cade, with Garrett, in some of these areas and some of these games, I think we'll see the experience of Clemson pay off, and I just don't know that I truly have faith, if I truly can buy in and believe to the Miami culture as of yet.
And hey, if I'm the ACC commissioner and Miami is the only team that's representing me in the playoff, I'm kind of covering my eyes a little bit because they're going to be untested to that point. They're going to be going up, could potentially be going up against the likes of Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Alabama, Texas, all those, Georgia. They wouldn't stand a chance against those teams. But that's not really the discussion here, okay? We're just talking if the favorites, as voted on by the media in each of these Power 4 conference media days, doesn't win the conference, who's it going to be? Let's move north. Let's go to the Big Ten.
Okay.
Ohio State listed number 1 with 21 first-place votes. This is a weird thing. The ACC, all these other conferences have like hundreds of people voting, right? Mm-hmm. And Florida State had 81 first-place votes, Clemson 55, Miami 17, NC State 8. The Big Ten only had 27 media members vote in their poll. That's it. That's it. So Ohio State came in number 1 with 21 first-place votes. Behind them, number 2, Oregon with 6, Penn State 3, Michigan 4, Iowa 5. You can't take Ohio State. Who do you like in that conference?
You know what, man? I'm shocked. When you look at these votes for first place and second place, I am absolutely shocked by 21-6. So you're asking the question, if not Ohio State, then who? I thought, Diesel, it might be more like in the teens, with Oregon maybe getting 12, 13 votes.
You would think there would be a lot of respect for Dan Lanning.
6 votes for Oregon blows my mind. So this is interesting because Penn State, even though they are third according to the preseason voters, they still have a good shot to get in the playoff. But to me, I said it last week, this is a coin flip. And I like Ohio State to win it. I told you a few weeks ago, I like Ohio State to go on a chance or to go on a run and have a chance at winning the national championship, Diesel. But this one's easy in my mind from the sense of Oregon's not really 2B or 1B to me. I mean, they're right there with Ohio State, and that's why the 21-6 voting surprises me. I like Oregon. That game, the reality of it, that game could go a long way in determining who wins the conference, and Oregon's super talented. So Oregon's the right answer.
They are, but they are, they're coming into a new conference, a lot more travel than they're used to. I don't know that that's going to be a huge factor for Oregon. Maybe if they've got to do multiple back and forth trips over the course of a season in a short succession of time. But I think Oregon's they've got a pretty tough schedule in their first year in the Big Ten. That's why I like Penn State a lot. They only play 2 ranked opponents. They play Southern Cal October 12th, and they play number 2 Ohio State at home November 2nd. If they get past the Buckeyes, which I believe a few weeks ago I predicted that they would get past the Buckeyes, they got smooth sailing after that, man. They got Washington, at Purdue, at Minnesota, Maryland after that. The schedule sets up really nicely for Drew Aller and for James Franklin. And I'm telling you right now, if James Franklin doesn't get it done this year with everything they've got, he ought to be on the hottest of hot seats. Well, you cannot do what you've done at Penn State and not get into the promised land, or they will kick your ass out.
I agree with you. And I said last week when you were gone, I said the 12-team playoff might be the saving grace for James Franklin. Really?
That's true.
It might be, because if he were to get in this year, he could say, oh, yeah, I got into the college football playoff. But you're right. The hot seat's there. It's just a matter of them making him sit on that seat. I don't see how. If he doesn't make a run this year, I don't see how he stays.
Should there be, at least in our minds, a tier list of coaches that got into the 4-team playoff, that were successful in the 4-team playoff, versus coaches who only got in once they expanded it to 12 and
absolutely
14 and 18, or wherever this is eventually going to go? Yeah, we should have tier lists in our minds of coaches who got in and won games in the 4-team playoff era. Oregon, they got a sneaky tough schedule. They got Boise State, Ohio State, at Michigan, and at Wisconsin.
Yep.
I think they'll finish in the top 15, but it'd be hard to say that they're not going to stumble down the stretch just a little bit. How about we come back down here to the Southeast? We go SEC. Georgia won with 165 votes. Texas, number 2 with 27. Alabama, number 3 with 12. Ole Miss has 4 votes. They're at number 4, and LSU with 2 votes, number 5 in the preseason media poll. If not Georgia, who wins the SEC?
You might think I would say the Longhorns. However, I've said multiple times, I don't believe until I see it with my very eyes that Alabama's going anywhere.
Okay.
And I think if it's not Georgia, I'm not giving up hope on the Crimson Tide. I believe in Kalen DeBoer Diesel, and I think Alabama has as good of a shot as Texas. And I will also put Texas in the category of Miami in the sense of they're supposed to be this team every year. They're supposed to be back every year. Until I see it, until you prove it, I'm not going to buy it. I've seen Bama do it. The culture's still there, and I'll go Bama.
I like Ole Miss at number 4 because Georgia, Texas, and Alabama all play each other. So they'll play a little round robin between the 3 of them. I think those 3 teams are going to beat each other up and leave some room at the top for the Lane train to burst on through, man. Jackson Dart is a dude. 3,500 yards last year, 23 touchdowns. He's got 3 seniors starting at wide receiver, Trey Harris, Juice Wells, and Jordan Watkins. Got a lot of experience behind those guys. I mean, this is kind of, I'm in the same boat with Ole Miss as I am with Penn State, in that if not now, it's never going to happen. Lane, you better get it done this year or you're never going to win the SEC.
It's just so tough, and I'm with you. I love Lane. I love Ole Miss. We've talked about it. However, Ole Miss, Jackson Dart, do they have the dudes around Jackson Dart to go up against Texas and Georgia? You got to have the dudes. I think they've got some dudes. I just don't know that they have the dudes.
And last, here we go with the 4th power conference, the Big 12, Utah, number 1 in the preseason media poll. Kansas State with 19 votes, Oklahoma State with 14 votes, Kansas with 5, and Arizona with 3. If not Utah, then who?
This one's challenging, Diesel. I'll tell you, Kansas State would be a good choice. Oklahoma State, you look at their schedule, I'm going to surprise you here. I'm going to go with someone that I'm very high on in 2024, someone that I really believe in, and someone that I believe could surprise the landscape of college football, and Jalen Daniels. I'll go Kansas. Kansas.
Coming out of the 4 hole?
Out of the 4, baby. Out of the 4.
Wow. Now,
How about that?
I like Oklahoma State a lot, and this is probably the most wide-open conference with the most parity, but they got a 7th-year quarterback, Alan Bowman, and explain how this stat happens. He threw for 13 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and still had over 3,000 passing yards last year. How do you have 3,000 passing yards with only 13 touchdowns and you throw a lot of picks?
That's fascinating, right?
And, truthfully, this ought to be Mike Gundy's conference. Now that thing 1 and thing 2 have left the conference, this ought to be Oklahoma State's league. And it's like, you got to grab a hold of it now, Mike, or you're always going to be 3rd and 4th place in this conference.
I don't think he's anywhere near, and I like Mike Gundy. I just don't think he's anywhere near the elites of elites, Diesel. In terms of you talking about those elite college coaches that make the 4, I don't think he's anywhere. I think he's a good coach, but I think he's got a lot to prove, man. He really does.
If not the favorite, then who do you say? If Utah, Georgia, Ohio State, and Florida State do not win their respective conferences, who will be the team to get it done? Text in 71307. Start your text with keyword fan or message us on the stream. Want to remind you guys that starting on Wednesday at 4 o'clock, the Wire to Wire Upset Picks Challenge brought to you by Ingles, where you get low prices and love the savings, is here. Yeah, your chance to start picking betting underdogs to get the upsets week by week starts Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Excited about that contest.
I'm excited as well. I'm new to it. Obviously, you know a little bit more about it as well. On a teaser at 6 o'clock in the 6 o'clock segment today, we will dive into the Upset Picks Challenge a little bit. We have a lot of new Tolos who listen to the show. So if you're new, if you didn't play along last year and you're not sure what the Upset Picks Challenge is, remember to tune in at 6 p.m., but also turn it on, leave it on. That's what we ask you to do every single day right here on this program. The Wire to Wire League Draft in the NFL was last night. Who got the best players? Who had the best draft? And who is going to come in fat old last? We'll talk about it next. Well, it's officially time to allow the trash talk to begin. What do I mean by that? The wire-to-wire league fantasy draft was last night. Who got the best players? Who won the draft? If you are in the draft, let us know what you liked, what you didn't like about the guys that you got. Diesel, we had 20. And then last week at Local Q, one of our Tolos said, look, 20 is too big of a league. And I wasn't thinking, right? When I made it, I was thinking the more the better. And he was like, well, it's going to be hard to get depth, add backup quarterbacks. And after he said it, I was like, oh, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Because guess what? Listen to the Tolos, created another one, split that bad boy in half, and made it 2 leagues of 10.
Okay.
So I had the first pick in one draft. I did not in the other. If you played and you drafted last night, let us know what you like about who you picked. I took Breece Hall, New York Jets running back with my number 1 pick. How about this roster? Lamar Jackson, a quarterback. Caleb Williams, backup. Your guy, your favorite quarterback, right?
Oh,
you love him.
Man.
You love his
Crybaby Williams.
Come on. Breece Hall, Aaron Jones, Michael Pittman Jr., Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz at tight end, Calvin Ridley, 49ers defense, Evan McPherson, kicker from the Cincinnati Bengals. So I like what I did with that one. And then because we had 2 leagues, I obviously had to take another team as well. Had Joe Burrow at quarterback there, Breece Hall, Tony Pollard, Michael Pittman.
Stacking the deck.
That's what I'm saying. Devonta Smith, Kyle Pitts, Keenan Allen, Browns defense, and Jake Elliott. I like my teams a lot.
You better start working on your winning speech at this point.
I know. I like them a lot. I really do. In the chat earlier, T Swizzle said the very first comment, y'all boys about to take some L's on fantasy. Brian Pettit says, read mine. Brian, what league are you in? Because I have to search for it. What's your team name? Let me know what league you're in and what your team name is. And we will go from there. I believe most of the people were in the draft last night. There were 1 or 2 who, were a little absent, but it's okay. You can auto draft. Do you think, Diesel, we had this conversation last week when you were gone, and I don't think we've ever gotten as much feedback on the text line than we have when we talked about fantasy freaking football. I had no idea, but people went nuts about it. Do you think that my philosophy, we talked about this on Wednesday, I believe, my philosophy of waiting on a quarterback is the best way to go when drafting in a fantasy league draft? We said that you take your receivers first. Just about everybody who gave advice on the fantasy draft said you have to take receivers first, running backs, you wait on the quarterback. But what if you go get a Lamar Jackson in the second round like I did? And then all of a sudden, the flip side of that coin is, what if you wait until it's too late and you're stuck with, I don't know, Derek Carr or Kirk Cousins, and then you're not going to have somebody reliable at quarterback?
Man, that would have been kismet, basically, if you had auto-drafted Cole and you had gotten Derek Carr
as much as I can't stand him. Wouldn't that be awful? Just terrible. Brian said Tiger Stripes Media is his team. Tiger Stripes Media. Where'd that come from? I have no... Riley Reed Option was in there last night, just so you know, Diesel. I'm sure you were wondering about that one. But Tiger Stripes Media, let's see who you had, Brian. Josh Allen at quarterback. I like that, right? Not a bad pick. Bo Nix as your backup quarterback. Or this one might be the 2-quarterback league. Diesel, Bo Nix has looked really good in the first 2 weeks of preseason.
Yeah. He was dropping some dimes for the Broncos.
They might have their QB1. Sean Payton might have his guy.
I think he already looks better than Bryce Young.
What if Bo Nix, not to get sidetracked, what if Bo Nix was the best quarterback of last year's draft class? We talked about all of them. And we never really thought that Bo Nix would be the best one. We like him.
It's always rare, Cole, when the player that has the most hype about them goes on to be an unstoppable juggernaut in their first year in the NFL.
Yeah.
Or even goes on to have a phenomenal season. So I always, because I do like Schadenfreude. I do like when the unexpected happens.
Sure.
It's taken now, 5 years? How many years has Trevor Lawrence been in the league?
This is his
taken
4.
him now 4 years. Okay. 3 years up until now. of just toil and people saying this guy sucks. This guy's a bust. He's not an NFL quarterback, yada, yada, yada. I mean, that's what they all have to deal with, right? They're always being drafted to the worst possible teams. But the best players find ways to rise above it. And, I love it when the guy that gets all that hype and the entire media machine just gets behind somebody like Caleb Williams, who won't go talk to the media, who won't show up for workouts, who won't do the combine. I love it when a guy like that falls flat on his face.
Texter from the 237 chimes in. For quarterbacks and tight end, if you can't get one of the elite guys, Mahomes, Hurts, Jackson, Kelsey, you wait until later rounds. I won my league last year starting 10 different tight ends and seven quarterbacks with Matt Stafford starting in the fantasy playoffs. Interesting. Texter says Tim and Gaffney with the Crusaders. Tim and Gaffney chimes in. Let's see what you had, Tim, last night. Let's look at old Gaffney Crusaders. What a unique name. Tim got Patrick Mahomes and Trevor Lawrence.
Wow. Jeez,
Not
dude.
bad. Not bad. James Cook at running back from Buffalo. Tony Pollard, my former Dallas Cowboy, who's now a Tennessee Titan. DK Metcalf, I like that. Amari Cooper, George Kittle at tight end. TJ Hawkinson at backup. Lions defense, and Jake Moody at kicker. Tim, I don't hate it. I don't know if I love Tony Pollard. We'll see if he's an RB1. He's a really good guy coming off of the bench. That's in Dallas. His best years he had when he was RB2, not RB1. So it'll be interesting with Tony Pollard. But again, I like Patrick Mahomes a lot, and don't hate what you did there. If you, Diesel, would have played, and I didn't ask you this last week, if you were, because you chose not to join the fantasy league, though, if you were, and I opened the laptop and saw that Diesel had the number 1 overall pick of all the players, all the guys in the NFL, who do you think you would have went with numero uno?
Oh, man, it's hard to choose against Patty Mahomes. It's hard to pick against Lamar Jackson. I mean, those guys are just stat machines.
Sure.
I mean, heck, I could have picked Dak Prescott because he's great in the regular season.
Great fantasy quarterback.
Sucks in the postseason, but he's great in the regular season.
Everyone was telling me to stay away last week when we were talking about these guys and who to pick first. McCaffrey with the 49ers, Diesel, was someone that was talked about as
always
being
out.
Yeah.
Why would you want a
I
guy
said.
that's always out?
He's injury prone. And guess what? When the number 1 overall pick came around last night, to me, I didn't take McCaffrey for that exact reason. To your point,
put him in as your backup running back. Okay. I mean, truthfully, I don't know a lot of strategy about playing fantasy football because I've never played. So all this is a little bit foreign to me. So I get to learn and live vicariously through you.
Well, you're going to see how bad I do. I'm not really confident. I gotta be, though. At the end of the draft, they email you a draft grade, and I got a B. JD said he got a C last night. Shane Barrett, the dump button, great team name. I think Shane still has the best team name out of everybody. He had a C as well. I don't know what the grades are based on, if they're just projections or what exactly goes into it. But I'll tell you this. I do think a guy like Tyreek Hill's valuable this year, but what is intriguing, and I don't know who got him last night. I don't know. I didn't see him go off the board, but whoever got CeeDee Lamb in our wire-to-wire fantasy league, I think you might be in an interesting spot with the contract negotiations.
You know why I think Tyreek Hill might be a little bit of a reach if you took him early? Because Tyreek Hill last month, I guess it was about 3 weeks ago, we had a piece of audio. I don't even remember if we played it or not, but we had it. Tyreek Hill said that last year he was just all about the stats. I want to have.
He did say that. You're right.
I want to have an insane stat season. He goes, this year, I'm all about the team, which that tells me that Tyreek Hill is not going to be in the coach's office. He's not going to be in the quarterback's ear saying, throw me the ball, throw me the ball, throw me the ball so that I can get stats. He wants to be a team player. He wants to have his team winning big games, making a deep run into the playoffs. So I think Tyreek Hill, for that reason, if anybody took him early, it might have been a little bit of a mistake.
Brian on the stream says, Cole, last year I had Patrick and he never got over 24 points. How did he never get over 24 points, Brian? That blows my mind. One of the better quarterbacks in the league not getting over 24 points in one game. You would think that would be a surefire guy to get you 24, 25 points a game. But the big passes, I don't know if the big passes from Mahomes weren't there last year that didn't rack up the points. But that's surprising, man. That's very, very surprising. Want to read this real quick. Texter Boston Scott says, just a thank you to y'all supporting local Q in a tough time means the world to me, my wife, Liana, and the owner, Leah. Absolutely, Boston Scott.
Boston Scott, you don't understand how much it hurt me that I wasn't here that last week to be with Cole at that event.
How cool is that place?
I love local Q. I've spent many a time and many a dollar bill inside local Q.
That was my first time.
Really?
Yes.
I love that place, man. And I hate what this stupid liability law is doing to bars and concert venues in the upstate. It's truly tragic that our lawmakers can't get their heads out of their asses. I mean, you're telling me none of these guys that work in the South Carolina State House or in the state Senate, none of those idiots have ever gone to a bar or a restaurant and ordered some drinks with their food and said, hey, I'm actually having a good time. I'd like to be able to come back here. They passed this stupid ass law that makes things really difficult on bar owners and restaurant owners. And it blows me away that with all the influential people that we have in Columbia, in Greenville, in Charleston, in Myrtle Beach, all these touristy areas, that they haven't been able to exert some influence and get this law changed to take the pressure off of them. But Scott, man, I love local Q, and I'm with you. And it hurts me that this is taken so many of my favorite bars and restaurants out. It really is tough. Let's see. We got a text here from Michigan J. Todd that says, Diesel, it's great having you back. I had a massive heart attack in June and almost died. I was so grateful to live through that ordeal. Yeah, Michigan J. Todd, I think he won the contest last year. Is that right? Did you win the challenge last year, Michigan J. Todd? Because I know that you've always done really, really well in this contest, and your name is always at the top of the leaderboard. So
thank you, sir.
We appreciate you reaching back out. Hadn't heard from you in a while, and it's good to know, obviously, that you're doing well after your health scare. And hopefully, Michigan J. Todd, while you're sitting back, taking it easy, you can kick some more ass in this challenge again, because it's going to be a blast doing it again in 2024.
Quick recap. Round 1 last night in the Wire-to-Wire Fantasy League draft. Breece Hall, I took number 1. Christian McCaffrey, Grant and Five Forks took number 2. Bijan Robinson was picked number 3. Tyreek Hill 4. CeeDee Lamb 5. By Reapers, Roughnecks, Jamar Chase 6. Justin Jefferson 7. Amon-Ra St. Brown 8. Jonathan Taylor 9. A.J. Brown 10. Saquon 11. And James Cook 12. That was your first round draft results last night.
JB on the stream says, I see the fantasy smack talk. Bring it, boys. Let's go flying Elvises. Is it Elvis? Is Elvises the plural of Elvis, or is it Elvi?
Oh, I don't like Elvi.
I don't like it either, but I don't know.
Sounds weird.
Joe D1, E Thoughty. Okay, thank you, Dan. Joe D1, E Thoughty. Dan himself came in 3rd. Mark L.O. Ducks came in 4th. Gold Rush in 5th.
Joe D1.
I was wrong. I thought Michigan J. Todd did really well in that.
DB's the man on that.
I know that he usually does really well. He's great at picking those upsets. He's got this like sixth sense. I don't know what it is. But hey, we're back. Cole and myself here on Wire to Wire. I was gone all last week. And I want to tell you about my trip, where I was, why I was out for an entire week leading up to the best time in sports. Football season, it's back. We'll get into that next, right here on the Fan Upstate. Man, I love hearing Promo Guy rattle off all those teams that you're going to hear us talking about on this station, because that means football is back. It's back on Saturday. We got Florida State. We got Georgia Tech going head-to-head. And next Saturday, we got your Furman Paladins headed down to Oxford, trying to knock off Ole Miss in week 1. Now, I got Ole Miss as my favorite to go and win the SEC. If not Georgia, who? I'm calling Ole Miss because of the schedule that they got. But how huge would that be if Clay Hendricks and the Furman Paladins went down there and shocked the world in week 1 of the season? Man, that would be huge. Would that be bigger in your mind than Furman beating Virginia in a buzzer beater in the NCAA tournament?
That one was an all-time. That one was an all-timer. But I'll tell you what, comparing the two would be extremely difficult. The Virginia game was an instant classic, but this in football, well, hey, more guys, Diesel, this would be huge.
Furman, they're in a little bit of a tough spot this year because they're breaking in a new quarterback. I believe that the quarterback that they had last year graduated and moved on.
Yep.
So they're going to be breaking in a whole new quarterback, which puts them at a little bit of a disadvantage going up against Jackson Dart and Ole Miss with all that senior talent that's coming back on this team, all the transfers from all over the place. But I'm going to say it, man. I think if Furman could pull that off, it would be bigger than App State, Michigan.
Ooh.
I mean,
that was a big one.
Preseason, what is Ole Miss ranked in the preseason poll?
I don't know. That App State, Michigan, it was kind of just like the first time.
Michigan was number 5 that year. Ole Miss is number 6. App State was coming off of a national championship with a quarterback that had won the national championship for them. They were, as an FCS team, a loaded football team at the time. But Furman,
it'd be huge. There's no doubt.
It would be, and you know, like, it's Michigan. I get it, but Michigan had not really been Michigan for a while before that. I'm saying it. I'm saying it. If Furman pulls this win off, move over App State, Michigan, and you know how hard that is for me to say.
I was going to say that's saying a lot. That's saying a lot.
That's saying a lot.
I don't think it'll happen.
That would be a monumentous upset for the Furman Paladins if they were able to pull that off. And speaking of which, starting next Friday, we'll have Clay Hendricks on the show every Thursday, excuse me.
Yep.
Every Thursday throughout the season. So I was gone for an entire week. I know, Cole, that you did a fantastic job holding down the fort. I was out in the wild, wild west in New Mexico. Man, like, it's just a whole new world.
Yeah.
It's a whole different world out there. You know, like, you got landscapes everywhere you go. You come around a corner, bam, postcard. You take another turn, bam, postcard. Just everywhere is just epic, insane scenery.
Like Woodruff Road, kind of?
No, I mean, I did see people protesting Planned Parenthood on Woodruff Road. I didn't see any of that in Albuquerque. But, you know, there are places there where you and I, as white dude Americans, are not allowed to go.
Ooh.
Think about it. This is America.
Yeah.
But we're not allowed to go there because it's technically not America. It's a little Pueblo land, which Pueblo means the people.
I like that word.
Right. Yeah. And so you got this tribe that owns this little piece of land, and that tribe owns that piece of land, and you're not allowed to go there. I mean, these are sacred places that you're not allowed to go. We joke that it's sacred land until they want to put up a casino and make some money off of us. Then they're willing to let us on their land, right? Sure. If they want to make some money off of us. But I'm telling you, man, if you've never had a chance to go out west, do it. You got to do it. I mean, you can't drive down Woodruff Road or drive down the back roads where you live and even fathom what it's like to be able to see those kind of views everywhere you turn. I mean, it's a special place. And I'm telling you, you gotta get out there and see it for yourself, because I mean, we took a scenic train ride. We took a ride up to a place called Sandia Peak, which is a 10,000 plus foot high mountain looking out over Albuquerque. That's this big flat valley, huge city down there. And then you realize, oh man, that's like 5,000 feet below me.
Any good food
down there? Everything is so good. You put hot chili on everything.
Oh,
there's red chili, there's green chili. You can have both, and they call it Christmas style.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like it.
And I met a guy, if you're familiar with Seinfeld, I met the real life soup Nazi while I was out there. There's a guy in Los Alamos that sells burritos
Wow.
that you walk up, you put your money down, you tell him exactly what you want, and you step out of the way. He doesn't give you any change. You have to give him as close to the money that it's going to cost you to buy your burrito as you can, because he doesn't give any change. He is the real life soup Nazi. The guy is mean, but he makes a mean burrito.
Was it good?
Oh, God.
Oh, now you're making me hungry.
So
now you're making me hungry.
I had one with sausage, bacon, chorizo, egg, chili.
Not bad.
Oh.
Now you're making me hungry. Texter says if Furman wins, will it end Diesel's bromance with Kiffin? Ooh. You have a bromance with Kiffin?
Not really.
I thought I did.
Not really. I like Lane Kiffin. I don't say that I'm in a bromance with Lane Kiffin.
We will continue the conversation. I made my college football predictions last week. Does Diesel have any pushback on what I predicted? Your thoughts as well, all coming up right here on The Fan Upstate. All of my predictions are fine and dandy until someone else is hosting with me that can push back, right? I made my college football predictions last week. I told you who I thought it was going to be in, who I thought was going to be out. And Diesel, I'm going to give you the floor. I'm going to give you a chance in just a few moments to tell me where I was right, tell me where I was wrong, what you would have done different, because it's a hard thing, the 12, now that we've expanded. I found it very difficult to pick 8 through 12. 4 is pretty easy, right? Predicting the 4 best teams in America. I believe most people would do that, and I think most people would probably have the same 4 in their top 4. However, that's not the case anymore. But as I said last week, in order to predict the top 12, you have to set the table and predict the conference champs, right? You get 7 at large and then the highest ranked G5 champion. And that's where I want to start, because I found it very difficult to predict what G5 champion would be the highest ranked. Diesel, I went with Boise State, but I also thought about a team like Liberty, who's always very good, who has a really good head coach. And I want to know from you, when you talk about highest ranked G5 champions, do you have any issue with me putting Boise State as the one team that does get in?
Well, first, I want to mark off Liberty because they play a garbage tier schedule, just like they did last year. Liberty played a nothing schedule, and they ran through it. I mean, it's still hard to win football games. I'm not saying, you were only there because you had an easy schedule. It's hard. Ask any football coach in America. They'll tell you any football game is hard to win. They're easy to lose. They are hard to win. So I don't think Liberty has the dogs on that roster to get it done a second year in a row. This year's a little bit tougher.
I just pulled up their schedule.
Conference USA, not good. They don't play a hard schedule. They got Campbell at New Mexico State, UTEP, East Carolina, at App State, bye week, FIU, bye week, at Kennesaw State, new to FBS, at Jacksonville State, home against Jacksonville State, new to FBS, at Middle Tennessee State, at UMass, Western Kentucky, and at Sam Houston, new to FBS.
Yeah, you're right.
They're new to FBS themselves. This would be their second or third FBS season. That. So, they've got
who's the toughest game?
3 teams.
App State.
This is not me tooting my own horn. I think, at App State is their toughest game on the schedule this year.
East Carolina's good.
East Carolina.
Yeah, they're good.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 though, right?
But they don't play a Power 5 opponent or Power 4 opponent. So we're not going to get a good sense of how good they are against better competition because they don't play a power opponent.
You'll be able to see when you talk about Liberty in 2024, you'll be able to see against ECU and at App State. You'll be able to see how good they are. But again, to your point, the schedule's very bad. Those 2, ECU and App State, are by far, in my opinion. Now, I know Kennesaw State's good. They're always a tough team. But those 2 games early in the season are their toughest 2.
I see. I have no problem whatsoever giving them at least 10 wins.
Yeah,
I think they're going to beat Campbell. They're going to beat New Mexico State, UTEP, FIU, Kennesaw, Jacksonville, Middle Tennessee State, UMass, and Western Kentucky. They're going to beat those teams. And Sam Houston. They're going to beat them. Jamie Chadwell is a good coach. As much as I dislike some of his style and some of his personal flair, he's a good football coach. He kind of leaves everywhere right before the NCAA sanctions come down. But hey, that's Jim Harbaugh did the same thing. So East Carolina at home and then App State on the road is going to decide Liberty's season in 2024.
Wesley Roberts on the Facebook stream says, no hating. Chadwell and Willie Corn have been dominant. Look what they did at Coastal. No doubt. We both would agree with that.
Willie Corn is a really good coordinator.
He is.
And I'm shocked. I'm shocked that Clemson didn't go snag him when they had the chance. They went with a bigger name, Garrett Riley. It's not a bad choice. But, Willie Corn, I could certainly see that as a guy who is headed towards being a head coach himself one day or being a high-level coordinator in a big school. I do like how creative Willie Corn's system is.
So the difference between Liberty, who's going to be a highly ranked G5 champion, right? because we said it, that schedule's not good. The difference, Diesel, between them and Boise State is the second game of the year. You know where Boise State goes week 2, September 7th?
Mm-hmm.
Eugene, Oregon. So they're going to be tested and tested early, or is Boise State rather?
So we were debating here. Will Liberty, who has a fairly easy schedule, doesn't play a power opponent, and could run the table again with a relatively weak schedule, will they be ranked higher than maybe Memphis? Memphis playing out of the American Athletic Conference, which gets a lot of respect, just being the largest profile G5 team.
Sure.
They go on the road and play Florida State in week number 3. They don't play any other power opponents on the season. They don't necessarily have the toughest schedule ever either. However, Troy is a good football team.
Troy's good. Troy's good. They could be in the conversation.
North Texas is good. UTSA is good. Tulane, we'll see. I mean, when you got coaching changes, we'll see. But I think the committee is going to look at that Memphis schedule and say, that's a more respectable schedule. So depending on what happens, if Memphis is as good as a lot of the pundits think they are, and they go 11-1 with just a loss to Florida State,
sure.
Or if they beat Florida State, it's a lock, right? You got to think it's a lock, unless Boise State goes and beats Oregon, and then also runs the table, which is not going to happen.
So you have any issue with Boise State there?
If it's my money, if I'm putting money down on the table and calling up my bookie, I think I'm calling in a bet on Memphis.
Okay, I
do like Memphis a little bit more. I mean, the AAC gets a little more respect probably than they deserve. The AAC now is not what the AAC was when Houston and Cincinnati were there. But I do think the AAC is still, at least in the committee's eyes,
sure,
a conference that's got a little more oomph to it. So I'm going Memphis. Though I think Boise State could be nipping at their heels, and if both of those teams go 11-1, and the difference is the performance for Boise State against Oregon versus the performance for Memphis against Florida State. I like Memphis's chances to look better, to look good against Florida State.
Texter says Liberty is smart. This comes from the 441. A one-loss team is relevant when SEC and Big Ten teams give each other multiple losses. Buckeye Brian asked on the text line, "Are you live on YouTube today?" Yes, Buckeye
yes, we
Brian,
are.
We certainly are, my friend. And good to hear from you. Appreciate you being in Tolo. So, you know what? It's something that hasn't been talked about a lot, Diesel. I think that G5 champion, the highest ranked, is a very intriguing conversation as we get probably October, November.
Yeah.
Season starts winding down, so it'd be fun to watch.
So to this texter's point, who says Liberty is smart, a one-loss team is relevant when SEC and Big Ten teams have given each other multiple losses. I get what you're saying. Now, Liberty was in a weird, funky situation because they moved up as an independent first.
Sure.
So I think there was one year, didn't they even play UMass twice in the same season? Which, when you think about that, man, that's a joke to play. It's New Mexico State. I think they played New Mexico State twice in one season, home and away, just to be able to fill out a schedule. You got to do what you got to do, right, to fill the team and fill the schedule. But now they're in Conference USA, which is not what Conference USA used to be.
It's not good.
I don't like it, Texter. I don't like this. We're not going to play anybody with a pulse. We're not going to play a power team. I get that it's hard to schedule those games, and Liberty's got all the money in the world. Like, they could honestly pay a power team.
Sure.
Liberty could pay a North Carolina or pay a Duke or somebody like that to come to Lynchburg and play them there.
I just find it fascinating that they don't schedule anyone with a little bit more firepower.
So I want to look, what does Liberty's future schedules look like? When is the next time they have a power opponent on their schedule? Not until 2027. Does Liberty play a power team? They'll play at Virginia Tech on September 4th, 2027. So they've got a not a long-standing, let me rephrase that. They've got a 4-year stretch where they play home and home against Virginia Tech. Outside of that, they're not scheduling the Texas A&Ms or the Florida States of the world. They're
Chadwell's racking up them wins, baby.
They're playing they're gaming the system. It seems as if they're gaming the system, but here's the thing, it's not necessary. It's about being a conference champion and not necessarily about just going undefeated. I mean, you could be a conference champion of a G5 league and still be ranked higher than Liberty because they hadn't played anybody.
So that'll be fun to watch. Let's go to the core four, as you call it, right? Core four. Still not used to it. It's going to take a while. Let's start with the Big 12. You mentioned it earlier, Utah, if not them, then who? Utah, in my opinion, is the favorite to win the Big 12.
Yeah.
I
agree with you.
Oklahoma State pushing there. Maybe Kansas State. You like that? Big 10, I have Ohio State winning the Big 10. Who does Diesel like coming out of the Big 10?
I like Oregon a lot.
I do too.
Because Ohio State goes on the road to Eugene.
That game is going to be massive.
Dan Lanning is one of my favorite young coaches in this sport. I love his attitude. I love his edge. I love his get off my lawn and the fact that he's got all the resources anyone could possibly want.
Sure.
Oregon has spent the last 20 years building itself as this like hip, sexy brand. I like Oregon a lot.
That one's a tough one to pick. I picked Ohio State, but as I said in the very first segment of the show, I think the Big 10 is truly a coin flip between those two. So it'll be fascinating to see that game, I believe, October 12th. Again, ACC champion. I changed my pick last week twice, Diesel.
Really?
Twice. I cannot decide as of right now. I'm going Clemson out of the ACC. I'm going Georgia out of the SEC. Any pushback there?
You flip-flop between Clemson and who?
Florida State.
Florida State. See, I don't have a ton of faith in Florida State.
Well, I don't have a ton of faith in DJ. I like Norvell. I like the rest of the team.
Yeah.
I just don't know that I have a ton of faith in DJU.
I mean, Norvell showed that last year he could take a collection of misfits and get them to play extremely well.
Yeah.
Now, is that who he is? Is he going to be able to do that year in and year out? Or did he catch lightning in a bottle?
You're right.
He did it with Jordan Travis. And DJ Uiagalelei is not Jordan Travis. So he could get the entire rest of the team, the other 84 guys on scholarship, to play as a team the way that they did last year, but still not have Jordan Travis at QB, which changes everything.
Now,
I don't have faith in Florida State this year.
I do have faith in Miami to get to the conference championship game. If you told me, Diesel, Miami could get there, I'd believe it. I'd buy it. However, I don't believe Miami will have been as tested as other teams. And I know ACC is not the best conference, but Clemson plays tougher. Florida State plays tougher than Miami. Miami's schedule outside of Florida and Florida State is not strong. I like Miami to be able to go on a run, but I don't think in the conference championship game, Diesel, if you told me it were going to be Clemson and Miami in the conference championship, I'd take Clemson.
I mean, I look at the schedule and I think they got 3 coin flip games.
Who's that, Miami?
Florida State.
Sorry.
They play number 14 Clemson in Tallahassee, at Miami, at Notre Dame. I mean, do we really think that DJU has what it takes to win 2 out of 3 of those games? I don't. I mean, I could see them even taking an L to Florida, right? Even because Florida's still loaded with talent. They still got a ton of 4-star guys and 5-star guys on that roster. So, I mean, it just depends on, has Florida given up at that point of the season? But even just right now, I see Florida State losing 2 out of those 3 games between Clemson, Miami, and Notre Dame. If I had to say which 2 they're going to lose, I think they're going to lose to Clemson. And I think it's tough, man. I think they're going to lose. I think they're going to lose to Miami. So I think they lose to Clemson and Miami.
Tracy says FSU wins the ACC. DJ and Heisman talk. You know what?
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
How much money do you have on this, Tracy? Did you bet your entire paycheck on that pick?
Diesel, I will tell you this. I don't think Georgia Tech wins the game, but I think that Saturday we'll find out a lot about DJU. I really do. I think that we will see if DJU in 2024 on Saturday, when they go to Dublin, is the quarterback, is the guy that can not replicate what Jordan Travis did, but somehow make it 2.0.
If DJU doesn't come out and have just a bonkers game, his confidence is going to be shattered for the rest of the season.
Sure.
I mean, shattered.
Could be.
For the rest of the season. I don't have faith in his ability to come back after either a loss or even if it's a win and he throws a couple of picks or has a fumble or two. I mean, I think he's done for the rest of the year. And if that happens, man, you might as well put in the backup by week number 6 of that season.
Wouldn't it be bad?
Because, man, it's going to be a tough year for DJ.
So the 7 at large, Diesel, and we can get back to this later in the program in the 6 o'clock hour if we need to, because I know we have a break and our guest coming up at 4:20. 7 at large, I have Texas as a surefire lock. I have Alabama and Oregon as 3 surefire locks. Any pushback?
No, I'm with you on that. There's no problem there.
Miami, I have in because of their schedule.
Okay.
12 teams, Penn State, Ole Miss, Notre Dame, rounding out the 12.
What? Now, I can't find a lot of pushback on here. Now, are these is this your final season ranking, or is 1 through 4 your conference champions, and then 5 through 12 is where you rank them
of who's
based on power?
Based on who's getting the playoffs, I think Utah will finish 5th, and
I don't think there's any chance Boise State is in the 7 hole.
You don't think they'll get that high?
No way. No, I mean,
what if they were like one loss?
This
Boise?
thing is rigged, man. It's rigged by the committee to put the G5 team at number 12, no matter what.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
so there's no chance Boise State gets in any higher than 12. Well, you know
I don't think so.
It's fascinating because Boise State does play Oregon. Would it change your mind if Boise State went toe-to-toe with Oregon week 2?
If they went toe-to-toe, we're talking 7 points or less kind of thing, 10 points or less, close game down the stretch. We got a real football game on our hands.
Sure.
And then they essentially run the table after that. They will have beaten Washington State. So Washington State still has a little bit of that power stink on them. So they, that they'll get some credit if they beat Washington State. And I think they will.
Yeah.
Utah State, Hawaii, UNLV, San Diego State, Nevada, San Jose State, Wyoming, and Oregon State to end the season.
No Washington?
No Washington on this schedule.
Gotcha.
Start the year at Georgia Southern. It's going to be hot down there at Paulson. They might get it. Some of these players might get clunked on the head by a battery. You never know. But, I mean, if they do that, man, if they play a good game against Oregon, they will have wins against Washington State and Oregon State. They'll get credit for that.
Just not as high as 7.
I don't know. No, not as high as 7. I mean, at the best 10. At best 10. I don't think that schedule is good enough to crack the top 10.
No pushback. Not a ton of pushback there.
When we come back, we talk to Grayson Mann of TigerNet. Normally we would have David Hood scheduled in here, but he had a little bit of an issue, so we're going to go to his main man, Grayson Mann of TigerNet. Talk to him about Clemson football next, right here on the Fan Upstate. Just 12 days out from Clemson v. Georgia, noon kickoff, Atlanta, right there at the Mercedes-Benz Dome. It's going to be a tough road for the Clemson Tigers to get this one done. We're joined right now to talk about it. Grayson Mann, new hire at TigerNet.com. First of all, Grayson, we appreciate you joining us here on the show for the very first time. Congratulations on picking up the new gig there at TigerNet. Does Clemson playing Georgia at noon, in your mind, play into their favor at all? I mean, if I'm Dabo, I finally get to play that disrespect card again. They don't think you're prime time kind of argument. If you wanted to use that for motivation for the team,
I think anything's fair game heading to this, and I appreciate the kind words for thanks for the hire. But it's a pleasure to be on, and I think for this game, I think it's not as much about the time as it is about just the atmosphere of this game. It's a top 15 matchup. The Bulldogs are the team of the decade. There's a lot that Clemson can do with this matchup to say, hey, we're maybe this close or we're right there. So I think for them, it's more of a matter of, okay, where are we after this game versus a motivation, and I'm sure Dabo will use whatever he deems necessary for this team. But I think it's an exciting matchup from just the perspective of, hey, you get to really show or really get to find out where you are very early against what likely is the best team of the country entering in a couple weeks.
You can follow him on X, on Twitter at Gray_man21. That's man with 2 N's. You know, we've talked a lot about Grayson over the last few weeks. Clemson starting off with an opponent like Georgia, it being a really good thing if you can go out there and look the part. However, the flip side of that coin is if you go out and lay an egg, that Georgia matchup being as difficult as it is in week 1 isn't an Old Dominion, right? So it's one of those situations for a team that's trying to reprove themselves. It's fascinating that Georgia game, maybe if it were a little later in the season, would be better timing for Dabo and company just to have time to get Klubnik and Riley synced up back together for year 2.
Right, and I think at the same time, maybe some fans would like that Clemson opened up against the Citadel like they do in late November. Or a team maybe like App State that, in my personal opinion, fans should be taking very seriously. But I think the beauty of it is, Cole, is that Clemson fans are going to find out a lot about this team. It's going to be in your face very quickly, very immediate. And I think a team against Georgia, and then you follow it up with a home opener against App State, you get a bye, and then you get to face off Grayson McCall and NC State. It's a gauntlet in September. And I think you're going to find a lot about this team early. But I think for them, they're going to learn a lot about themselves as well. And I think that comes pretty valuable when it comes time for the ACC stretch, where you have to go on the road and face your former quarterback in DJ Uiagalelei, when you have to go to Virginia Tech and Pittsburgh in November, where it's going to be cold, it's going to test you physically and mentally. I think facing Georgia early, they'd probably rather have it game 1 than game 5. And sort of, you get to catch them off guard. You get to say, hey, we have nothing to lose here. Let's go out and see what we can get done.
Grayson Mann of TigerNet joining us here on the Fan Upstate. Football, Grayson, you know, we've always known as a game of matchups. Are there any position groups or even individual matchups where you see Clemson having an edge over Georgia, or are the Tigers basically underdogs at every phase?
You know what? I think it's fascinating. I think Clemson enters this game with the most talented linebacker on paper in Barrett Carter. And I think having him back for his senior year was such an important decision way back when. It feels like it's flown by, especially in these last couple of weeks with getting some actual football. But I think Clemson's got a real advantage of the front 7. I think when you have guys like Peter Woods, TJ Parker, Barrett Carter, there's certainly talent there. Do I think that Georgia maybe hasn't seen in the last couple of years? I know they've played the Alabamas. They've played a litany of teams within the SEC, but I think you get freshman All-Americans like TJ Parker, Peter Woods coming into year 2. We know what we can expect from them. And I think on the offensive side for Clemson, I think those freshman receivers, we've been hearing a lot of good reports about them in camp, and especially from Dabo Swinney. I think we may be able to see Bryant Lesko and TJ Moore have a chance to make an impact early. And for the Clemson faithful that have been waiting for that receiver, that 50-50 guy, or just an alpha, if you want to quote it like that on that side, you're going to get to see it early against a Georgia defense that's as good as it gets.
Grayson, you know what's really interesting about this game being early? A lot of people say a team can progress and get a lot better as the season goes on, and that's true. However, this game, in my mind, will tell us a lot in terms of if Clemson's a playoff team or not. Do you think this game against Georgia defines Clemson and their 2024 positioning in or outside of the college football playoff?
I think if it were still the 4-team model, I'd be more inclined to say that this is a game where we're going to learn pretty quickly if Clemson's going to be in the big dance or not. But I think if you go down the road and Clemson's 10-2 with maybe a loss to a respectable Florida State or Virginia Tech, I think there's an outside shot that they're an at-large team in the postseason. But also on the flip side, if they beat Georgia, there's still games down the stretch where Clemson can falter and end up being 9-3 or 10-2 and maybe still not able to go to the playoffs. There's just so many factors that play into it early. But I think that cushion of having 12 teams eligible for the playoffs, I think even if Clemson were to drop this game, let's say 30-20, let's say that happens. Georgia makes a surge in the second half, but you saw that Clemson competed. I think there's many that would say, okay, that one loss there, if Clemson gets better as the season progresses, it would be fair to say, hey, if Georgia's still the number one team in the country, that they're absolutely a team that's deserving to be in the playoff.
Grayson, David tweeted about 10 days ago that Vic Burley, defensive tackle, was injured last week. Dabo said that he's back. He's really firing right out of the gates. Any concern for you that Vic Burley is not going to be 100% 12 days from now?
I think a lot could still happen within 12 days. They're still practicing, but David's right on the money with that. Dabo, of course, told us on a Thursday report last week that Vic Burley is a guy that you notice immediately and that he was a contributor on a couple big plays to start out the scrimmage. And so injuries are the name of the game. There's a lot of areas that I'm sure Clemson fans are going to be watching very closely, that we don't get an injury report every day on Twitter, like some NFL accounts like to put out, especially when I'm watching on NFL Sundays for my Patriots. I'm like, okay, who's questionable, who's doubtful, and all that. So I think when it comes down to it, a lot can still happen in 12 days. And I think for Clemson fans, they're crossing their fingers because I think from what we've heard from the coaching staff, Vic Burley's going to be a nice piece for this defense.
Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com, joining us right here on the Fan Upstate. Grayson, for those that you talk to on a daily basis who cover the Clemson beat day to day, is there any sense of a different relationship or a different way that Garrett Riley, the offensive coordinator, and Cade Klubnik, the second-year quarterback, are going about their day-to-day business this year compared to last year?
Yeah, maybe not be people that I talk to on the beat specifically, but what we're hearing from the players. And I think every year, Cole, we get the same, something's different about this team. We get that same energy, same talking points that we usually get in the summer. But something that really stuck out to me of what Dabo Sweeney said in these two scrimmages is that compared to last year where the offense was at in year one with Garrett Riley, is that this team's making less mistakes. They're more mature and comfortable. He really made sure to emphasize the comfort. And the players have too. Jake Berney-Still, we talked to today, said it's just so much easier to go out there when you're looking at the installs that day and you go, I recognize that. That's familiar. We can go out there and perfect it. We can run it. The first time we're running it, we're not learning it. We're just trying to get better at it. And there's something, I think, valuable with this offense. They're returning a litany of starters. You got the quarterback that isn't having a third coordinator in 3 years versus having Garrett Riley in year two. There's certainly a value there. So I think with this offense, they're more comfortable. They're a little more comfortable in their own skin, which I think is important. And when it comes down to the details of fumbles on the goal line against Duke or a blindside block that makes all the difference against Florida State, maybe those mistakes and errors that are easily correctable have now been corrected.
Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com joins us here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson on the Fan Upstate. Barrett Carter, the only Clemson player put on the preseason All-America team, first or second team. Is that fair or not that only one Clemson Tiger listed among the two best in the two deep at these positions?
I think it's fascinating that Clemson's in a position like this because I remember growing up and you could probably count on numbers on your hand how many All-Americans Clemson potentially had in the preseasons. And Peter Woods, obviously, we've seen what he can do. Freshman All-American. He's obviously been a very touted prospect, even when he was in high school, and now that continues into college. And so I guess it's up to Clemson at this point to prove whether that's fair or not. I think it's maybe not for me to say just because of based on what we've seen in fall camp. We don't have 2 hours of access in practice where we get to see each single rep individually and be able to account it and note it. So I think for the writers that are coming up with these lists, it's just a matter of the preseason becomes a big guessing game. And I think for Peter Woods, it's a big name that most probably recognize. And so, yeah, you could say, well, what about potentially Phil Maffa or let's say a Barrett Carter? I think it just comes down to who's writing this, who's paying attention, and it's up to Clemson, a team that only won 9 games last year. That's many are used to them being in the playoffs. It's up to them to prove that, I think, in their eyes.
Grayson, I liked the really liked the story that you and David did a few weeks ago with Jeff Scott. Very intriguing to see him still in the community, obviously in a different space now in real estate. I hate to be this guy, and I don't mean to bring the temperature of the conversation down, but if year 2 of Lincoln Riley and Cade Klubnik don't go well, is Jeff Scott staying around for maybe a reunion in your mind, or is that off the table?
And this is one of the things we asked him if there was going to be a return to coaching, and he told us absolutely not. He's very happy where he is right now. He's in a good situation, and we talked to him, and then anyone that hasn't listened yet, you can check it out on TigerNet.com, our conversation with Jeff Scott. He just talks about it's a less stressful life, I would think, and he's doing a lot of great things. We're at one of their construction plots a couple weeks ago, and man, I tell you, with a view like that, it's tough to leave that kind of role. And so I think for Jeff, he's in a good place. He went to actually a couple practices. He was able to talk to them, but he says as of right now, the itch really isn't there, and he doesn't foresee a return to coaching anytime soon.
Grayson, you talked about the comfortability of the players in Garrett Riley's system here in year 2. To your mind, is it going to be, and you really can't put it this way, the same thing, the same system that he ran last year? Because coaches are always trying to figure out ways to add wrinkles and change things. But from what you've seen in practice, do you see any change in scheme or change in creativity that fans are going to be able to notice as well?
I'm probably going to be calling myself out for this because I talk about the same cliche storylines we hear, but I think the difference for me is a difference in attitude and a difference in confidence with this group. Just watching Klubnik and stretching, warm-ups alone, there's a different sense to him, and I think that's that comfortability that we've been talking about in this quick segment that you guys have is for Klubnik. I talked to him last week, I believe, and he said that the thing that for him this offseason, it was all about the details and trying to figure out how do we make sure those are the routine things that we're doing, because last year for Clemson, they're one of the worst teams in the country at holding on to the football, and those would be pretty important details to remember if you want to make it back to the postseason. So I think you're going to see a lot of the same stuff from Garrett Riley. You may see different personnel that maybe there's a concept that we had last year, or Riley had last year, that didn't necessarily pan out, but you had a Wesco, a Moore, a Christian Bentacore in there, and you go, whoa, something just popped there. And so I think you're going to see the relatively same things from Garrett Riley in year 2, but I think with the added personnel he has, the more familiarity he has with the starters that are returning with his quarterback, I think you're just going to see it's going to probably feel different, but maybe some of those route concepts, those schemes, I think may be the same.
Grayson, my last question for you, timetable-wise for Clemson, when do they turn the page to Georgia? And even though they haven't turned the page to Georgia yet, you know, that they tell us, the coaching staff will say they're focused on themselves right now, but have you seen any hints dropped in of the scrimmages, practice, the people you've talked to after practice, of them already doing a little preparation?
Right, and Sweeney told us on Saturday and Thursday that the scrimmages were sort of the bookend to what they call their version of the preseason, and that now it's time to focus on the Bulldogs. And so I think slowly but surely, it's not officially game week, but I think for the coaching staff, the players, they can see that red G is slowly but surely creeping up. It's rising in the horizon. So I think they're very much aware of it. I think the coaching staff has started preparation. Sweeney said after the second scrimmage, it basically becomes game week. And so it's an extended stretch, of course, but the Bulldogs are certainly within their rearview mirrors.
Grayson, what has Dabo done to try to motivate these players that little bit extra going into this game? Have they been, you hear stories about coaches blasting the opposing fight song through the PA system over and over again. Anything at all that they might be using in practice to gain a little bit of an edge against Georgia?
Well, I've seen Dabo wear a shirt that just simply says finish on it. And I think that's been, and I talked to Keith Adams really right as fall camp was beginning, asking what was going on with that shirt. And he said, that's the word that Dabo's been giving us this year is finish. And that a lot of the times last year, and the players have been pretty honest about how last year, sometimes that didn't work out. And it translated to losses on the road against Miami and NC State. Obviously, everyone has the Duke memory. Certainly, if you're a Clemson fan, it's probably nightmare fuel at this point, and they're hoping to avoid that against Georgia. But I think that the motivation is correcting the errors of last year, and I think it's been very evident talking to the players, coaches, other members of the beat that last year very much haunted, I think, a lot of the members of that roster. And I think that word finish reverberates through those facilities. And I think they're going to do their best to potentially rectify last year and move on to 2024 and try to get back to the postseason for the first time since 2020.
Grayson, great stuff as always. Have a little fun when you talk to David and tell him you did so good that he has been replaced. And let us know get back to us on his response there. Hey, we appreciate you hopping on, man.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. That's Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com. As I said, David Hood scheduled every Monday, Diesel, at 4:20 to join us. Fantastic interview. David started last week, and second week already calling out. I mean, come on. What kind of
How about that?
David already he did have a good excuse. Had some dental work, he said, and Grayson Mann did a fantastic job of filling in for David at TigerNet. Diesel, time to get our audience caught up on what's going on in the sports world. We call them Daily Wires next. Getting you caught up on what happened over the weekend, it is the Daily Wires.
Buzz.
There you go. There we go. We got it in. It's been a while since we heard that buzz with Diesel on vacation last week, but it's time to get you caught up on what's going on in the sports world. Atlanta Braves playing a little bit better baseball. Diesel took 2 of 3 from the Angels, now 66-58 on the season. However, they're still 7 games back in the East. Off today are the Bravos, so we'll see. We'll see if the Braves can muster something together down the stretch here.
I felt happier not having to talk about the Braves for a week.
That's a fact. That is a fact. That is the best thing you've said
weight
yet.
Was lifted off my shoulders.
That is so
incredible.
Bad but true. Also in the news today, in case you missed it, Jaden Daniels has been named QB1 by Dan Quinn and the Washington Commanders. They've seen enough.
Shocker.
Yeah, we're all shocked by that. But I don't know, man. Watch out. That's all I'm saying. A little bit of a sleeper there in the NFC East. The Firekeepers Casino 400 finished today, not long ago. Tyler Reddick got the win. They were not able to get it in last night. Diesel, you know why? Because this racetrack, number one, it rained, and if the rain would have let up, doesn't have lights.
Oh, man. Where is NASCAR? Why aren't they mandating lights at all these tracks to get these races in? Because they know I'm sure they have numbers on this that says when we have to push a race to Monday, we lose 75% of our audience.
You would think it would hurt the ratings in a big way, but again, no light, so they can only run during the daytime. Interesting. Let's see. The Jets defeated the Panthers on Saturday, 15-12. 0-2 Carolina Panthers in the preseason. Bryce Young still did not play. Maybe they're holding him for Game 3. We'll see. Speaking of Game 3, Diesel, they're in Buffalo on Saturday to conclude the NFL preseason. 20 days from today until the actual season kicks off in New Orleans.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth. I got into a Twitter yelling match with Will Pelagic, who has spent some time on the station. He works closely with the Panthers organization because he does play-by-play for the Charlotte FC soccer team. And he and I got into it over the weekend about Bryce Young not playing at all.
I missed that.
You know, I can't argue with guys like Andy Reid and Sean McDermott who play their guys in the preseason and then go on to find a lot of success in the regular season. I understand the concept of wanting to keep your QB1 and your starters as healthy as possible. But they're going to essentially be going into week 1 of the season against New Orleans on the road without having the closest thing you can get to game reps. I don't believe that joint practice reps are the same thing. It's game reps and then a greater than sign, preseason reps, and then a greater than sign, joint practice reps.
So I'm glad you said that. In the very last segment of the show today, 6:45, stay tuned, turn it on, leave it on. I'm going to tell you what I think the NFL preseason has become. So a good teaser there, by the way. We didn't think about that, but just that continuity, I guess. Right?
Is that your backhanded way of telling me I'm wrong?
No. I'm going to tell you that you're slightly off, but I'll give you some. I don't disagree with your overall concept, but I'm going to tell you I don't necessarily have the preseason games in the same category as you do. We'll get to that, though. Aces Asia Wilson Diesel broke the WNBA record with 17th 2010 games. Just very impressive what Asia Wilson continues to do.
Keeps on scoring.
She keeps on. Racing and reckless driving charges were dismissed against a Georgia starting linebacker. Shocked, right?
Really?
We're all shocked by that.
Was it the attorney in the state of Georgia that dismissed this?
I don't know.
Somebody made a campaign
attorney.
contribution.
Might have been a last name Smart, who was a cousin of the head. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I don't know that. It's Mondon Jr., the player, by the way, linebacker from Georgia.
We don't know yet though if there's going to be any team punishment.
That's correct.
Against Smale London. Okay.
You would assume though that you'd hear pretty soon from that because
all of that punishment
week.
will be doled out during the offseason, none of it during the regular season.
That's correct. Add yet another milestone to Caitlin Clark's record-breaking 2024, her latest coming Sunday in the Indiana Fever's 92-75 win over the Seattle Storm Seattle Storm, rather, as she broke the WNBA single-season rookie mark for assist. It's good, but not good enough to get into the Olympics. She leads the WNBA in assists at 8.3 per game, reached 232. She is lighting it up.
Well, Team USA didn't really need her. They won the gold without her.
They barely did. I was kind of hoping they lose, just so I could get on here and say,
like, see, if they had Caitlin Clark.
Absolutely.
If only they had the rookie.
You know me. Mike Tyson, Diesel, he says he's ready to fight Jake Paul following that health scare that he had, a few months ago when they were supposed to fight? Was that July, I believe? The boxer, who was once considered the most dangerous man in the world, could be obviously putting himself in danger. He was quick to respond on that fight upcoming with Jake Paul. He says, because I can, who else can do it but me? Who else is going to fight to make this happen? No issues. No hesitancy, if you will, from Mike Tyson.
So
Diesel.
We all know that Mike was a terrifying fighter in his day. We all know that. I mean, but how is it that Mike Tyson is now turned from heel to good guy in a lot of people's minds? Like,
Yes.
I want nothing more than to watch this old ass, washed up Mike Tyson kick Jake Paul's ass because everybody hates that guy.
I want it to be whatever you call a blowout in boxing, an early knockout.
TKO.
I mean, I want Mike Tyson to come in and just wreck shop.
Here's what scares me is that this is not going to be an actual fight. That this is going to be an exhibition. They're going to dance around each other.
Probably so.
I mean, like, Mike, as seriously as he's probably going to be told, like, hey, we need this thing to go 6-7 rounds. We can't have you potentially knocking Jake out in the first or second round, even though the world would lose their minds over that. They're going to want a longer fight. I think we're going to get basically a glorified exhibition. This is going to be Rocky versus Thunderlips, the Ultimate Male. It's not going to be a legitimate fight. And I hate these exhibition fights. I hate them so much because they're not real. Hey, just want to remind you guys, starting Wednesday, the Wire to Wire Upset Picks Challenge, brought to you by Ingles, where you get low prices and love the savings, is back. Your chance to pick betting underdogs to get the outright upsets and earn points and bragging rights over the course of the college football season is here. Starting on Wednesday, we'll take picks at 4:00. Coming up next, Cole, you and I will go toe-to-toe. Speaking of boxing, we'll throw some punches around. It's the 5:00 fight. You and I, we go head-to-head next on the Fan Upstate. Oh, it's good to be back. Back here on the Fan Upstate with you, with Cole Bryson, with the Tolos. And I hadn't thrown a punch in a week. Okay?
I hadn't either.
I'm going to stretch out a little. Oh, you didn't do the
No,
okay.
no,
okay,
no,
so
no.
we both have saved up
I'm rusty.
all of our jabs, our uppercuts, all that. Crack the necks, stretch out the hands, stretch out the fingers. Get ready. We're going toe-to-toe in this segment we call the 5 o'clock fight.
It's an all-out slugfest, and nobody's leaving unscathed. 3 topics, 1 winner. It's the 5 o'clock fight on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson on the Fan Upstate.
Here's how this works. Each and every day, we come up with 3 different topics, sometimes sports, sometimes not, and we go toe-to-toe on it. We debate it. Here's the thing. We have to disagree. We cannot say the same things. You, the Tolos, decide who wins each round of the 5 o'clock fight by voting in. You can text 71307. Start your text with keyword fan, or you could message in on the stream on Facebook, on Twitter, or on YouTube. Just search for the Fan Upstate. That's a great way to do it because you get to chop it up with other Tolos while you're in there as well. Here we go. Time for round number 1. Fantastic question here, Cole, man. Question number 1 is great. When the NFL season is finished, will the Carolina Panthers front office be uncertain about QB1?
This is not a good question to answer. This is not good because we're going to have to be honest, and Dave Tepper's not going to like it, right? Will the Panthers front office, Diesel, be concerned about QB1 and the future of the franchise? I say Bryce Young this season will do enough. He'll have the weapons needed to put the front office at ease. I'm not saying he has a breakout season and throws for 1,000,000 yards. I'm just saying with some added weapons, better offensive line, a head coach that understands offense, he'll put them at rest. And the answer to your question is no, they won't be uncertain about their QB1. I've said it many times right here on the Fan Upstate. Bryce Young's still a special guy. It's just going to take somebody who can unlock that level of special that he has. And I think Dave Canales can do it.
See, the problem is you're thinking about this with logic and measure. But we all know Dave Tepper's got none of those things. He is a twitchy, finger on the trigger kind of guy, and he will pull that trigger. He will look around and he will see CJ Stroud having another phenomenal football season, as I expect him to. He will look at the other rookies that were drafted this year, Jaden Daniels with the Commanders, Bo Nix with the Broncos, all these rookies that are in the league, even Caleb Williams, possibly. I don't believe he's going to have a phenomenal football season, but he's going to look around and he's going to see other rookies looking a lot better than his second-year guy. And he's going to start getting a little bit twitchy. So if the Carolina Panthers have themselves a 5 to 6 win season or less, they're going to be right there in that mix, obviously, for the top 5 spot again. And I could see Dave Tepper doing something stupid, which I agree that it's stupid to do this. But we're not here to debate whether or not it's smart. We're here to debate whether or not he's going to feel a certain way. And he's going to feel like, man, I don't know. I don't think this is working out. And I think, yes, they will be uncertain about who QB1 will be going forward at the end of the season. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to make a move, but they are going to be very concerned about it. That's round 1 of the 5 o'clock fight. How about round number 2?
Round 2, fight.
Another fire question here, Cole. How many quarterbacks will we see for the majority of the season for the South Carolina Gamecocks in 2024? A lot of reports coming out that Robbie Ashford is looking really good in camp, pushing LaNorris Sellers in a big way. Robbie Ashford said that's one of the main reasons he chose South Carolina is because Shane Beamer told him you're going to have a real shot to compete for this job. So how many quarterbacks will we see taking major snaps for the Gamecocks? Not talking about, garbage time, fourth quarter,
Old Dominion.
QB3, QB4 is out there getting some reps. No, just major reps. How many quarterbacks will we see this year?
This is a fascinating question because if you answer it one way, Diesel, it means that not so good things have happened. And, I believe in LaNorris Sellers. I really do. I think Sellers is going to have a good season. I do not think Robbie Ashford will see the amount of playing time that he expected. I'm not saying he got lied to. I'm not saying Shane Beamer lied to him. But I am telling you that I think Robbie Ashford will be the one who's disappointed Diesel. And I think LaNorris Sellers will be the guy. You said it. Yeah, Robbie against Old Dominion and some trash time snaps. He may see the field. But I'm banking on LaNorris Sellers being the guy and proving the doubters wrong and using the fuel of Robbie Ashford pushing him during the offseason to motivate him to really go out and give his best. And I think you see that, and the Gamecocks start 2-0.
So the South Carolina Gamecocks have basically 3 weeks off this season. Old Dominion, Akron, Wofford. Vanderbilt Vandy still has an SEC roster ish, right? But outside of
that's
that,
an insult to the SEC.
It's brutal. Kentucky, ranked LSU, ranked Ole Miss, ranked Alabama, ranked Oklahoma, ranked Texas A&M, ranked Missouri, and ranked Clemson. So this season could get squirrely fast for the South Carolina Gamecocks. And it's probably not going to even be LaNorris Sellers' fault, right? That this team is not going to be able to compete. And Shane Beamer, knowing that, and I've even seen Brad Crawford, who is the biggest Gamecock homer I know, tweeting that Shane Beamer's seat is starting to get a little bit warm. This is a guy that called us screaming about what we had to say about Shane Beamer last year, called into our show to tell us that we were wrong.
Sure.
And he is coming around to the idea that Shane Beamer's seat is getting warm. So Shane Beamer damn well better be thinking about preservation mode at this point, right? And if you've got a quarterback in LaNorris Sellers who is not playing exceptionally well, which, again, through no fault of his own, may be the case just because of the brutality of the defenses that he's going to be facing, I think Shane Beamer would be negligent if he didn't at least try putting Robbie Ashford in to see what he can do. So I think we're going to see a lot more Robbie Ashford this season than a lot of South Carolina Gamecocks would want to see, which means things aren't necessarily going great for LaNorris Sellers. So I'm going to say the answer to that question is 2. We're going to see 2 quarterbacks for the majority of the season for the South Carolina Gamecocks. There you go. That's round 2 of the 5 o'clock fight. We got one more to go. If you're riding the fence, 1 vote for one round, 1 vote for the other round. Maybe this one will break the tie. Round number 3.
Final round. Fight.
Cole, you spent a week overseas in Nicaragua 2 weeks ago. I spent a week on the other side of the country in New Mexico. What's more comforting after a long trip? Coming home and sitting on your own couch, or coming home and sitting on your own toilet?
This one's a tough question to answer because you could obviously throw several other factors in there as well, like your own bed, right? Laying in your own bed. That's a good one. I'll tell you, of the 3 questions we had in the 5 o'clock fight today, round 3 was the most difficult to answer. I'm not a big fan of pooping in other places that I'm not used to pooping in. And, I know, like, when you buy a house or move into an apartment, other people have used a toilet seat, so it's not like it's brand new. But I'm weirded out in a weird way, man, about toilet seats. I don't love using the bathroom in public, but if you got to go, you got to go. I'm a toilet at home kind of guy. I will sometimes push the envelope just to see if I can make it home, just to use my own toilet and not have to go to the gas station. I do it a lot, really. So for me, the answer is toilet. I don't want to poop on somebody else's toilet.
I didn't realize you were such a big fan of prairie dogs.
Yeah,
Cole.
I am.
No, the answer is your couch. Like when you're on the road, when you're out there, you can never really get comfortable, right? You're sitting on somebody else's sofa. I don't know what you had in Nicaragua, a stump to sit on, whatever it is you got.
It's about right.
You come home and you know that your couch cushion, your spot is like perfectly formed to your own ass.
Yeah.
And you just sit down in it and you're like, that's where it's at. So I'm going to say a couch, sitting on your own couch on your spot on the couch is like the ultimate coming home to comfort situation. So that's what I'm going to go with. That's your 5 o'clock fight to recap round number 1 when the NFL season is over. Will the Panthers front office be uncertain about their QB1? Cole says no. I say yes. Round 2, how many quarterbacks will we see take major snaps for the Gamecocks this year? Cole is really high on LaNorris Sellers. He says he's going to get a majority of the snaps. I'm saying, let's see, this schedule is really tough. And Shane Beamer's probably going to put Robbie Ashford in there just to maybe save his own butt. And then round number 3, what's more comforting after a long trip, coming home to your own couch or to your own toilet? Cole says toilet. I say couch. Now's your opportunity to vote. 71307. Start your text with keyword fan. Let us know who won each round of the 5 o'clock fight. And right now, as Atolo did during the last commercial break, Adam Harris, he got in a 5 o'clock fight idea. I'm going to tell you how you can do the same.
What do you want Diesel and Cole Bryson to fight about next?
If you've got an ass, I'll kick it.
Submit your topics to diesel@thefanupstate.com. Subject line, fight on the Fan Upstate.
Start getting in your 5 o'clock fight ideas and your votes. You can text those in now, 71307, or hit us up on the stream. Madcraft says, Cole, that ain't healthy. Holding it in.
I just don't like going in public, man. It's tough. It's tough.
Says you're not supposed to do that.
Wesley Wesley sides with Diesel, says Diesel, Cole. Madcraft also goes Diesel on the stream. Round 1, Cole round 2, Diesel round 3.
Yeah. So I take 2 out of 2 votes so far.
I'm not getting any so far on the round 1, QB1. What that tells me is people are highly down on Bryce Young. Highly down, which is not good.
Yeah.
Not good. Bo says Diesel round 1, 100% on Bryce Young. Cole round 2, don't know anything about this topic. What was the topic?
That was LaNorris Sellers getting a majority of the snaps, or will we see 2 QBs for the game?
And Cole gets a pity round, Diesel round 3, Bo. So go, Bo, for Diesel.
Yeah.
Tolo Steve says clean sweep, Diesel.
Woo!
And I finally get the first win from the 497. Cole 2-1. LOL.
Man,
says the 497.
You realize we're going to start seeing 821 numbers showing up on the text line before long?
Yeah, I don't like that.
I don't know when it's going to be. I mean, should we, just for fun, should we place an over-under by September? What's the last day of September? The 30th. 30 days in September? September 30th. By then, will we notice an 821 number texting into the show?
I don't think so.
Because today is the official first day of 821 numbers being issued.
But it's only issued to new residents.
Correct.
Right? So, well,
new lines.
I don't know. A lot of people move here. I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah.
I'd say no, not until the new year.
So there's 30,000 people a year that move here. Divided by to the upstate. Yep. Yeah. Divided by 12 months out of the year. That's 2,500 people a month. And you got to think 2,500. I mean, those people have their own phone numbers from where they're coming from.
A lot of them don't change.
A lot of people don't change their phone number. So, that's tough, man. If even just 10%, that's 250 people.
Yeah.
In the upstate.
And what's the number again? What is it? 812?
821.
821. Gotcha.
See, that's confusing as hell. That's stupid because there's 828 where I'm from in North Carolina, right across the state line. So we're going to have 821 and 828 butting up against each other in the state of South Carolina.
Corn Chip says Cole with the win today. Public toilets in only a dire emergency. And then Madcraft contradicts himself and says, I don't want to be a hypocrite. I also hate using public restrooms. I may be guilty of towing the line.
I don't know, Madcraft. I don't know what kind of vehicle you drive. If you drive a truck or an SUV and you got a trailer hitch, you can get a toilet seat that hooks to your trailer hitch.
Oh, that's
and classic. So you could just pull over and do it wherever you want to on a toilet seat.
I don't know. Madcraft seems like a Buick kind of guy, doesn't he?
A Buick. Oh, you're saying like Madcraft was drive his grandpa's car?
No, I didn't say that.
Not a grandpa car, because nobody goes out and are you saying that Madcraft's the kind of guy? My McConaughey's not good. He was driving Buicks before it became cool to drive a Buick.
Well, he might have been. I don't know. DB says no. I own a Buick.
Dan B has a what was that? Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. Dan B has a what?
Buick has a Buick Grand National, which those things are awesome. Like an 80s. Is it 80s? What year is it, Dan B? He's got I love that.
That sounds like my my promo.
You know what I found out? I found out over the weekend that Matthew McConaughey stole All Right, All Right, All Right.
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that. No.
He
Don't
stole
tell me that.
it.
I don't want to. I thought it was original. Now I like Matthew McConaughey less.
He tells a story, and I sent it to Rob Brown. He stole it from Jim Morrison from The Doors. He said there was a live when he was when they were working on filming Dazed and Confused. He was going on the set, and he watched a live Doors concert, and in between songs, Jim Morrison, said, all right, all right, all right, and he goes, well, let me just take that.
No,
he's like Wooderson's all about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. All right,
but you know what? He made it better though, didn't he?
He did.
He didn't. I thought it was original, but he made it better.
His delivery is original.
All right.
All right.
He's pretty good at it.
Yeah. 87 Grand National. That's what Dan B's got.
Text the show 71307 if you still want to get some late votes in. Wesley says you have to own the phrase for someone to steal it.
Okay, Gene Simmons, copywriting everything you can get your hands on.
Gotta own it, says Wesley. I did have a point I wanted to get back to, though. Oh, it was round 3, couch versus toilet.
Yeah.
I thought about this the other day. I neglect my couch in a big way. I am a chair guy. So, I have a chair in the corner.
Yep.
And I'm a chair guy.
Like a lazy boy?
No, but it has a
recliner?
No, it's actually one with the, what is it, futon? Ottoman? Yeah. Sorry, I get those mixed.
Futon's a couch.
See, you're the furniture guy here. The ottoman. So I'm a chair guy because I think it does have to do with propping your feet up.
Okay.
I don't ever sit on the couch, ever.
I use my table as my footstool. Yeah.
So you go couch more than chair?
I don't have a chair.
Oh, okay. So
I don't have it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
We have like an L-shaped couch. L-shaped sofa. But I got my spot, man. And for a week I was staying at my in-laws, and basically my spot where I like to sit is where my wife's dad sits.
Of course it is.
Because it's the best seat in the house. You're squared up to the TV.
Yep.
You got the armrest.
Yep.
And that's his spot. And of course, it's your father-in-law. You don't take his spot. That's one of the things that are sacred to a man. Like, you don't take the last beer in his fridge, and you don't take his spot on the couch. And
or at the table, right?
Yeah, I was sitting. Yeah, you don't take his spot at the head of the table. So, I am sitting in a spot that just feels foreign to me, watching TV for a week. And so I get home. First thing I do is sit down on the couch, and I'm like, "Hello, old friend. Hello, old friend.
You're
I
like
haven't
a
seen you in a
dog
week."
pissing on his, on his lawn, claiming his territory, sitting over there on the couch, claiming his territory again.
But I haven't peed on my couch.
Not yet. Not yet.
Well.
I sat on my. Here's what's crazy.
Enough beers, anything could happen.
You never know. What's crazy is I sat on my couch last night for the first time in a long time because I had people over, and I sat there and I thought, man, I hadn't sat here in probably 2 months.
Did you look at the person who sat in your chair and be like, "You need to get your ass out of the chair"?
Nobody sat in it, so I went back and sat in the chair. Really? I was like, if y'all aren't going to sit in the chair, I was trying to be nice. Like, hey, you want to sit in the chair? You can sit in the chair, right? Chair's the best spot. But no, nobody sat in the chair. So I'm back in the chair. I'm a chair guy. What can I say?
I can't sit in my dad's chair when I go to my parents' house, because my dad's chair has an imprint of his backside, and it just doesn't feel right. I can't sit there.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable to sit in that spot.
No, I get it. Stephen Webb on the Facebook stream says that's Diesel's spot. Nobody sits in Diesel's spot. Appreciate you being along as a Tolo, Stephen.
You know what's funny is last year at Christmas, all the family, they all come to our house, and my wife's brother tried to sit in my spot at the head of the table.
Oh, no.
I wasn't there. I didn't see it, but this is why I love my wife. She goes, "Get out of that seat. That's not your seat.
Can't sit there.
You can't sit at the head of the table in another man's house."
Sit there. I don't blame you.
Love it.
All right, coming up next, let's expound, Diesel, on the quarterback one conversation with South Carolina, because we touched on it right there in the 5 o'clock fight, right? But I want to get a little bit deeper into it in terms of if LaNorris Sellers isn't QB1 the entire season, what that means for South Carolina's success. Take your thoughts on the quarterback situation and why Shane Beamer hasn't announced a QB1 as of yet. All coming up right here on the Fan Upstate. Diesel, I'm glad our conversations during the break don't go on air, right?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
This is like a church pew in here.
Yeah. What are you talking about? Appreciate you being a Tolo. That stands for Turn It On, Leave It On. Texter chimes in from the 828 and says, I got my college football fantasy draft night. Who should I take at 7? College football fantasy, really? I mean, how do you have time to do anything? 7? Shedeur Sanders. Right? Isn't that the pick?
I mean, you're looking for somebody to go light it up and score a lot
Just
of points.
Saying, maybe. How about, let's see, wide receiver? Ooh, I don't know. I don't know in college if it's different than pro where you kind of frown away from taking a quarterback early. It's interesting, though. I don't have time to do college and pro. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, if you're looking for a receiver there, I mean, you can't go wrong with some of the Missouri receivers because they got a really good quarterback in Missouri. The Arizona wide receivers. I like Tez Johnson at Oregon. I like Emeka Egbuka at Ohio State.
Yeah, Luther Burden seems to be the guy that everybody's talking about, right? Maybe Travis Hunter.
I mean, there's always Juice Wells at Ole Miss.
Oh, Juice. You had to go Juice. You had to go there. Bring up the hurting South Carolina fans one day. I love it.
I didn't do it to them. He did it to them.
You're right. He did. Speaking of South Carolina, I want to get back into the conversation and get the thoughts of the Tolos. Diesel 71307. Start your text the word fan. We're also live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. 86 in the stream right now. Is the quarterback conversation, Diesel, of Robbie Ashford and LaNorris Sellers, is it directly related to the success on the field or lack thereof, or do you think it has more to do with the competition itself? What I mean is, for those listening, if we see Robbie Ashford in 2024, is it because LaNorris isn't performing? Is it because South Carolina's not playing well? They need a new face, a new spark? Or is it just simply because Robbie Ashford has done so well in the fall camp and the practice and during the week that he's pushing LaNorris literally out of his spot, Diesel?
Well, it's going to be tough to say. I mean, if Robbie Ashford is coming in early against Old Dominion, you got yourself not due to injury. Mm-hmm. Then you're saying week 1, second quarter, we realize that LaNorris Sellers is not who we thought he was going to be. Now, I don't think that's going to be the issue, right?
Sure.
But I'm throwing out the possibilities. Now, LaNorris Sellers is essentially a freshman starter. I know he's not a freshman, but he is a first-year guy.
He is.
He hadn't been around the program a long time. Robbie Ashford is a senior, and Robbie Ashford has been around at Auburn. He's played in the SEC. He's gotten used to the environments and the atmospheres. So he's coming into this with a little bit of experience that LaNorris Sellers doesn't have at this point. He's got more experience than with dealing with the SEC than does LaNorris Sellers. I understand he was on the sideline last year. I'm not saying that he's brand new to this. I'm just saying Robbie Ashford's got more of it. Robbie Ashford is a big dude. He's apparently a very competent quarterback. And if he comes in with second team, lights it up against Old Dominion, now Shane Beamer has got a real decision to make. He's going to say, well, maybe we should be running a 2-quarterback system here. I mean, remember, Tim Tebow was part of a 2-quarterback system when he was a freshman, right? He was that big dude, the big bruiser that when Tim Tebow came in, you knew what they were going to do, but they didn't trust him with the ball the rest of the time. And Shane Beamer, if things start going ill, probably more like the Kentucky game, if LaNorris Sellers comes in and throws a pick or two early and they bring in Robbie Ashford and he looks pretty good, now you got a real QB battle by week 2 of the season.
You do. I don't have any pushback on the conversation, especially early in the season. However, what's fascinating is if LaNorris Sellers is good enough to win them games, Diesel, and keep them somewhat competitive, then maybe they have a reason to use Ashford later on. Here's what I mean. If the team stinks and there's nothing on the line all season long, you may not see Robbie Ashford coming in a way that you think, because one would think, okay, if South Carolina's not good, maybe Robbie Ashford comes in and takes the job. However, how do you look at it? I know you brought up earlier Shane Beamer coaching for his job, and that's true. But if you're not in contention of actually being, let's say, a win away from being a bowl team or having something on the line, then I don't know that you see Robbie Ashford. I could see LaNorris Sellers being good, but the team not being good is my point. So what I'm saying is I could see LaNorris Sellers having an okay season, a good season, the team around him not good, much like Rattler. Bad offensive line, weapons, wide receiver room is a question mark this year. I could see a scenario where LaNorris Sellers is good, the team around him is not, and there's no reason to put Robbie Ashford in. But then one might ask, to your point, at what point does Shane Beamer say, look, we've got to have a guy in there that maybe can take the program and take the program to the next level by making those around him better. And that's my concern, as whether it's Robbie Ashford or LaNorris Sellers, Diesel, in 2024, is the talent going to be around either one of them?
Well, the question is, does Shane Beamer believe that LaNorris Sellers is the long-term answer for the South Carolina Gamecocks? He's got to coach. He's kind of got to coach in two different ways, right? He's got to coach to save his own ass, and he's also got to coach to think, okay, if I pull LaNorris Sellers by week 5, because I don't think we have a huge chance of winning, I mean, am I going to destroy his confidence?
And that's a good question.
Do I need to pull him to protect him? We've seen the Carolina Panthers not play guys. Most NFL teams don't play their starters in the preseason because they want to protect them. They want to keep them safe. So, like, what if Shane Beamer realizes by the time they start facing this gauntlet of ranked teams that his offensive line sucks again, and he cannot protect LaNorris Sellers? Is he going to put Robbie Ashford in there more? I mean,
it's fascinating.
I caution South Carolina Gamecock fans from getting too emotionally attached to LaNorris Sellers, because you've built up in your mind he's going to be great and he is going to be our guy.
Yeah.
All you should care about is winning as many games as you possibly can.
Team success.
Team success should be the only. Whoever it is does not matter. Whoever it is doesn't matter, because guess what? Robbie Ashford is a senior. He's going to graduate. LaNorris Sellers has got some time to go at South Carolina, but if he doesn't look competent, then you're probably going back to the transfer portal again.
You're going to have
next
to.
year.
You're going to have to if keyword if he's not the guy. I don't think that will happen.
No.
But the success this year of South Carolina football and the correlation between the team success and the quarterback and the starter is maybe a more fascinating story than South Carolina's had in quite some time, because, Diesel, I said it on the Sports Spin earlier today. At the spring game, you remember, we talked about it. They named LaNorris Sellers QB1 a week after the spring game, right? Robbie Ashford comes in. You said it. He has a lot of experience. He's pushed LaNorris during fall camp. And now we're hearing, LaNorris Sellers hasn't been named the starter for the actual opening weekend next Saturday against Old Dominion. Do you read too much into that and think, well, maybe that means there's a true battle going on, and maybe we're actually going to see a different guy start against Old Dominion? I don't think it happens, but if you want to read into things, there's something there for you to read into.
Yeah, I don't think Shane Beamer's playing cat and mouse with Old Dominion.
Yeah,
to leave them confused as to who the starter is going to be. I mean,
it won't matter.
Your options there are a sophomore quarterback or a senior who basically didn't play last year. So I don't think that's going to be really what Shane Beamer. I think ultimately it's that he's not sure at this point, or he's saying to himself, both of these guys are really good. I feel like both of them are good options.
I think that's probably
Shane would be smart, especially against Old Dominion and Akron, to put both of these guys in to see who really has the best command in game situations.
Matt and Greer chimes in on the text line, which you can do by texting the show 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Matt says, as a Clemson fan, I can see this Gamecock quarterback situation becoming like the Kelly Bryant and Trevor Lawrence if Sellers starts stinking it up.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can find something about yards after contact for Rocket Sanders last year, because this is going to be something that really takes a lot of pressure off both of these quarterbacks. The South Carolina offensive line, as we've had conversations between ourselves, as we've had conversations with Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered, is a big question mark going into the season. And if Rocket Sanders has the ability to just take some pressure off, be a safety valve, be a guy that can pick up, just average 3 to 4 yards a carry and be good at yards after contact, then that's going to save whoever is going to be starting quarterback for this team.
You're right.
A lot of headaches.
If he can be anything to what he was close to in 2022 at Arkansas, they're going to be a lot better. Billy Bob says Diesel is wrong. Sellers is 7-7 with 2 passing touchdowns and rushing touchdown. All caps. He's going to be the best quarterback in school history, says Billy Bob. Don't that just ooze confidence out of the Gamecock fan base, right?
Is that Dewey in disguise calling?
That's Dewey's cousin, I believe. JB says, I think the only way you see Ashford is because Sellers gets hurt. See, I just don't know. I don't know if that's true. I don't know that Ashford is only going to see the field in case of emergency. I think he's too good of a guy. I know on the 5 o'clock fight, I said it'll be LaNorris' team, and I still think it will, but I do think there might be situations where you have Ashford come in. Does Shane Beamer believe enough in Robbie Ashford, Diesel, that they can go from a 5 or a 6-win team, that Robbie Ashford being a guy not just as a backup, but an extra addition to the South Carolina offense, maybe a wrinkle later in the season.
Yeah.
Maybe he could be a guy that wins him a big game that he's not supposed to win.
I mean, I would love to see Robbie Ashford come in like Wildcat situations, to having 2 quarterbacks on the field at any given time.
Wouldn't that be crazy?
I talked about Robbie being a big dude. It's not like LaNorris Sellers is little. LaNorris Sellers is actually a little bit bigger, 6'3", 240. How exciting would this offense be if you had 2 guys capable of throwing the ball and really getting defenses off guard? I mean, look, you're playing in the SEC against elite defenses basically week in and week out. You're probably not going to overpower any of them besides Vanderbilt and maybe Kentucky. So you're going to have to get really creative. And I would love to see this.
I want to look at this. I'm not saying they're going to be in contention to win 7 or 8 games, but let me ask you this question, Diesel. When you look at their schedule, let's say there's a scenario where LaNorris Sellers is the starter. He goes, he beats Old Dominion, he beats Kentucky, right?
Mm-hmm.
LSU comes to town. LaNorris has you in the game. 4th quarter, South Carolina's offense has now stalled out like 2 or 3 times in a row. You have a chance of being 3-0, which is huge for South Carolina. Let's say late in that game, Sellers is struggling, right? Nothing can get going. Is that a time where you say, hey, let's bring in Ashford to see if he can be that spark?
You have to. I mean, again, Shane Beamer is coaching for his job right now. He's not coaching to protect LaNorris Sellers' ego, to protect his confidence. He's coaching for his job. He has to do that.
He has to do whatever it takes to win every single game. JB says Billy Bob needs to pump the brakes. He'll be good, but this is still a 5 to 6 win team. I will say if Rocket Sanders goes for 1,500 yards, they'll be a 7 to 8 win team.
Wow. I mean, I know he was that good at Arkansas last year, and I know that Arkansas played virtually the same difficulty in schedule. He was really good at Arkansas. I think Rocket Sanders is going to be a very good running back for South Carolina this year.
Hey,
but going 7 or 8, that's like predicting that the Carolina Panthers last year would win 10 football games.
Let me ask you this question. Fun scenario, Diesel. What I said is true. Sellers struggles late in the game, LSU. Robbie Ashford comes in, wins the game, beats LSU. Now you have the next week Akron, Ole Miss, Bama, Oklahoma. Wonder what kind of situation Shane Beamer would then find himself in is if Robbie Ashford just went and beat LSU, what do you do now? Do you go back to QB1 in LaNorris Sellers, or do you ride with a hot hand?
You find yourself in the situation that Dabo Swinney found himself in having a guy that won you a bunch of football games, didn't look good once, go into the other kid, looks good, and then maybe just takes the job from then on there. I mean, it really all depends on how good.
And that's what
how good Robbie Ashford looks in that situation.
And Matt and Greer's right. It could be a very similar situation with KB and Trevor Lawrence. It wouldn't be a good situation, but it could. Texter from the 317 says, guys, Carolina's not beating Kentucky. It's just not happening. Texter, I have them beating Kentucky on the road. On the road.
Ouch. Okay.
Come on now.
Don't. I don't. I mean, I think they'll be in the game. I'm not saying they're going to get blown out by Kentucky.
Sure.
But I think they're going to be in the game, probably not taking this one.
EA Sports.
Thank you very much. The preseason All-America list is out. First team and second team. Only 4 ACC players find themselves on the first team. Who had the most? And do we see a little disrespect from any Clemson players who should be on the All-America teams, first and second team? We'll get to that next on the Fan Upstates. ESPN has released their 2024 preseason All-America list. Bunch of guys on the first team, bunch of guys on the second team. Only one Clemson Tiger among both teams. That's got to hurt if you're a Clemson Tiger fan, because you remember the days when this team was littered with talent all over the place. You would have had probably 2 or 3 guys on the first team and another guy or 2 on the second team. But man, if this doesn't show you that the national media does not respect the Clemson Tigers roster, I don't know what else does.
Not a good sign. I'm surprised Dabo hasn't fired up the Roy bus already because of this and enforced outrage. However, what does that tell you? I mean, let's just call it like it is. Let's call a spade here, Diesel. It's very obvious what this means.
You're not recruiting at the level you used to.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So here's the breakdown, conference by conference. 10 SEC guys on the first team, 8 Big Ten players, 4 ACC, 3 for the Big 12, and 2 for independents, both of those being Notre Dame players. They don't get counted among the ACC list. They get counted as independents. From the running back stable, Amarion Hampton, 3rd year at North Carolina. He's on the first team list. Ashton Gillette, 4th year player at Louisville as a defensive edge. He is on the first team preseason All-American list. Barrett Carter, 4th year player out of Clemson. 62 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 0 forced fumbles, and 1 interception last year. He is on the list for the linebackers. And Alex Mastromano, 5th year guy out of Florida State as a punter. He is on the list. Is that the lamest position that you could be as an All-American? I mean, if I could be an All-American, I want to be an All-American. But
you're
more
there
as
impressive
a punter.
to kick or punt?
Oh,
should we save that?
To kick or punt?
For 5 o'clock? I mean, I think kicking's more impressive.
Well, of course it is, because you actually get to score points, and a lot of times kickers end up as some of the highest totaling, especially because a lot of kickers come in as freshmen.
Yeah,
you're really good because you have a little bit of a kicking situation, and then if you're lights out, you could be the kicker there for 4 years
in Carolina,
and you're. Well, if it's South Carolina, maybe we're talking about punting stats, but no, you get to score points on every single drive. Quarterbacks don't get to score on every drive.
Sure.
Running backs, wide receivers, they don't get to score on every drive. Tight ends almost never score. But kickers get to score on every drive. They get to kick field goals. They get to get the extra point. So on average, you score a heck of a lot more points as a punter. You score more points. You don't actually score more with the co-eds, though. That's the big difference.
Barrett Carter deserves to be up there. He's fantastic. Yeah. Grayson Mann, I think you asked him a similar question.
Yeah.
And he mentioned Barrett Carter. He's deserving of it. I just don't know that anybody else returning for Clemson is.
Compare Barrett Carter to the player who received second team All-American linebacker, Danny Stutzman out of Oklahoma, 51 tackles, 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and an interception. He has a little more of a well-rounded resume in the fact that he can force fumbles. Just Barrett didn't force any fumbles last year. So that's the difference between first team and second team All-American when it comes to being a linebacker. But the question is, Cole, are any of Clemson's players on this roster deserving of being first or second team All-American? You could look at potentially Adam Randall, Antonio Williams, Jake Brenningstool, Phil Maffa. Outside of that, I mean, I don't think anybody anybody in their right mind would argue that Cade Klubnik deserves to be in the conversation to be an All-American preseason. So, I mean, you really got to pick out of those 4 guys: Adam Randall, Antonio Williams, Jake Brenningstool, Phil Maffa.
I'd say maybe Jake Brenningstool.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I think he's going to be a tight end this year that surprises a heck of a lot of people.
Okay. I don't disagree there. Maybe the hard part is Phil Maffa didn't get a whole lot of carries last year. He was stuck in that RB2 position. Yep. It was obvious by the middle part of the season he was the better running back.
Correct.
But he just didn't get the reps. If Phil Maffa had been RB1 all of last season, I think he would deserve to be on this list.
He would have, and you're right. Reps matter. He didn't get them. I think he will now. And if if he is as explosive as he was at times, watch out.
Has a real chance to be on this list by the end of the year, for sure.
For sure. Absolutely. All right, coming up next clock hour, we will go over the upset pick challenge for new Tolos out there. We'll tell you how you can participate starting on Wednesday. I will tell you this. Our Tolos are fired up about the upset pick challenge. Diesel, last week when you were away, I had a text a day, at least one text a day. When does the upset pick challenge start? They're ready, you're ready, and we are ready right here on Wire to Wire. Upset pick challenge will be my first year participating. However, what is awesome, two things. Number one, it's sponsored by Ingles. We talked about that. And number two, our Tolos Diesel, like Dan B, are just absolutely on top of this thing, making it easier for everybody else, right?
Yeah, I really appreciate Dan B and all the support and help he's given getting this competition going year in and year out. He does a phenomenal job helping keep track of the dozens and dozens and dozens of text messages we get every single day that the competition lines are open. I mean, it's one of those things that it can't be done by you and I who are busy doing a whole bunch of other things than to have somebody like Dan B who's willing to help out and keep this thing straight for us. And he doesn't make mistakes. Dan B does not make mistakes. And that's what I love about him, because he is a detail-oriented guy.
Speaking of Dan B, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing great, guys. Representing all the Tolos, like I said.
Tolo Nation. DB says stand up. DB, I have a question for you as we start this upset pick challenge segment. Let's say I'm a new Tolo, and I ask you and I ask Diesel, who have obviously participated and ran this thing in years past, what is the upset pick challenge, DB?
All right. Well, it is where every week you look at all the lines and you make a pick of a team that you think will upset the favored team. It's got to be 3 points or more. So none of the 2.5s and 1.5s, those don't count. You're supposed to pick a team that you think has a real chance at winning. We do get that sometimes people go for the home run ball, and Colorado beats whoever, TCU for 21 points like last year. So that happens. It's just fine. But yeah, so you do that, and then you get your pick right, you get those points. Everyone starts at 0, of course, and then each week that you get a correct pick, you get those points. Every week you get an incorrect pick, you'll lose a point, but you never go below 0. And on a week where you fail to make a pick, you will lose 2 points.
That is the key. That is the key, because what's funny, Dan, you could tell me because you helped out keeping track of this. We don't have a whole lot of Tolos and P1s who miss making a pick, right? There's a lot of wrong picks that happens, right? Yep, but people, they don't want to fall back to 0, because it can happen to you real quick. If you pick a 10-point underdog and you hit, you could be back to 0 in 5 weeks if you fail to make a pick.
That's what you're saying.
Yes. So yeah, and that's just getting the word out from you guys' standpoint. Obviously, the radio, anyone listening is always going to know what's going on. But for those, Facebook and Twitter, you guys send out messages. Now it has to be on the text line. So I know some people would like to be able to do it on Twitter and Facebook, but that's just not how it works. It's got to be via the text line.
That's right.
DB, this is my first year participating. Again, Diesel's explained it, and you said it a minute ago. If I pick a game or a spread, Diesel, DB, and I don't hit, I lose points.
You lose a point.
1 point.
You lose 1 point for an incorrect pick.
Okay.
So Dan, you've done well in this contest a couple of times. I've done well in this contest one time. I did well the first year I picked. Do you have any strategy tips for Cole and for the Tolos?
Why would I tell you?
Okay.
The answer is yes, I do. But I mean, that's how I get to the top.
That's how he's the man.
Right. Keep your secrets.
Keep his recipe, he said. If he told you the secret.
I will say, Diesel, your recipe last year of making almost every pick a 3 or 4. I think if not every pick you made, at least leading up until the playoffs and the bowl games, I think was 3 or 4. You rarely went above that.
Yeah, I don't know that was. I don't know that was purposeful.
No, it might not have been.
Yeah, to me, it wasn't purposeful. It was looking around, and I basically don't like anything that's 14 or more. You can hit on a 14-point spread and win that game outright, but it's rare when you're a 14-point underdog. So I kind of like to look at games that are 2 touchdowns or less. I look at who's got the better point per game average, the home and away splits, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And all right, here's who I get a sense of, who's been beating the brakes off of their team, off of their opponents the past couple of weeks, like who's playing hot right now and who's not playing hot right now. And I don't have any real formula in my head. I just kind of go by feel, which didn't work for me last year. So what the hell do I know?
Hey, so as a strategy of this, instead of trying to go and get the big upset, 14, 20-point spread, whatever it is, a lot of people's strategy are to keep it small and just slowly build that point total?
Yeah, for the most part, the winning strategy is to hit your picks more about every other week, if not more. So if whatever you're doing is causing you to only get a pick right every 3 or 4 weeks, and you're using 3 and 4 pointers, you're just going to be hovering around 0 the whole time.
Yeah.
So
you gotta take shots, right?
So Dan, we have a message here on the stream from Wesley Roberts, who says we can't submit picks on the stream. Wesley, we're saying that you can't submit picks on the stream, and it's not meant to be like a hey, screw the people on the stream thing.
Yeah,
it's meant to help streamline the data collection process and send everybody to one place.
Help Cole out here.
We're trying to, we're asking you to help Cole, me, and Dan B out by not scattering these picks all over the place. So we are going to be strict about that. Wesley and all the other Tolos who are like, well, I want to call mine in. I want to text mine in. I want to tweet mine in. No, we need you to text in your picks. So that way we're sending everybody to one place.
Correct.
Everything is kept. And truthfully, Wesley, once this stream is over, these messages are gone.
We can't see them all in one place.
And we get well over 100, 150 plus comments during a show, and we can't be going back scrolling looking for one person's pick. And like I said, once we close this stream, all those messages are gone.
Wesley
there's not an archive of that anywhere. We need you to text in, and if you don't text in, we're going to tell you right now that'll be counted as a non-pick.
Wesley says, "I'm just giving DB a hard time. He can or I can text in too." Says Wesley, giving you a hard time, DB. Hey, look, we appreciate you heading this up and helping us with this.
Sure. Yeah, I got a couple things I just wanted to make sure everyone understands. The lines we use are from the 4-letter, I won't say it, competitor.
ESPN, you can say it. It's the worldwide leader in sports.
Yeah. So 3 p.m. Wednesday is when I take a screenshot of all the lines, and that becomes the official line for the rest of the week.
Wednesday. Okay.
So it gives everyone an hour prior to the 4 o'clock to at least get your last minute, what do you think's in. So if you look at whatever team you were looking at, Monday and Tuesday, but come Wednesday at 3, look at your teams one more time, make sure you're looking at the lines, and then that's it. So it doesn't matter if it changes, if it goes up or goes down, that doesn't matter. And even if you text in the wrong line, I will make sure the person's line is correct on paper.
Yeah.
So that happens quite a bit. It happens at least once a week. Somebody, calls it for 10 when it was 9 or whatever. So it's not a big deal.
I feel like DB's our bookie.
Do you have one of those little green see-through hats, Dan? Like an accountant?
I should, shouldn't I?
Yeah,
I should. And then this week, if I'm looking at it right, week 0 is August 24th to September 2nd. So it's I think it's 2 different separate weekends.
Yes.
And it's from this Saturday to the 2 Mondays following. And what's funny is Florida State plays twice in that week 0.
So here's how this is going to work, Dan. We are Saturday, August 24th will be the official first week of the season because there's not any games until next Thursday, August 29th.
That's right.
So Thursday, August 29th will be officially week 2, quote unquote, of the season. So the one thing that we're going to deal with, it's a little wonky this season.
Yeah, and I think that's why they're calling it week 0.
Are going to be
week, right?
only 4 games because I'm on ESPN.com right now looking at the schedule.
Yeah.
There are only 4 games as of right now that have lines listed. So we're going to have a lot of Tolos picking the same lines for the first week of the season, but that's okay.
I want to make sure we're on the same page here. So Saturday, August 24th is 1 game.
Yes.
Right?
And then starting Thursday, August 29th, that'll be week 1. So we'll have a week 0, which is just these 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll have week 1, which is all games from Thursday, August 29th. Now, obviously, if anyone picks any game that's on Thursday, August 29th, they have to have that pick in by the end of the show on Thursday. You do not get to obviously go back and give us a game that is over by that point. So any games on Thursday, August 29th, Friday, August 30th, Saturday, August 31st will count as week 1 of the season.
Okay.
Yep.
Hey, and just so you both know, I'm going Nevada as a 27-point dog to beat SMU. I'm gonna beat all y'all week 0.
Hey, I mean, there's only 4 lines for people to choose from in week 0 of the season. Florida State minus 11. Then there's Middle Tennessee State minus 10.5, SMU minus 27, and Hawaii minus 38. So you're picking Delaware State, Nevada, New Mexico, or Georgia Tech to pick the upset. Those are your only those are your only 4 choices in week number 1. And remember, anybody you make a wrong pick, you get your pick wrong, you stay there at 0. You cannot go into the negatives.
What happens if someone, my last question, I believe, what happens if someone plays week 1, they don't send a pick in for week 2? Are they deducted points?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
I
the
think
rule.
they should be.
No. If you submitted in week this week
0.
and you didn't get your pick, so you're still at 0, and then you failed to make a pick the following week, you'll still be at 0.
Right. You can't drop below 0.
Okay, I got you.
Never go below 0.
Can never go below 0.
Okay. Perfect.
So,
Makes
there you
sense.
go.
That's a good explanation, both of you.
Yeah, there's a lot of working parts to this.
Yep.
We'll try to be as clear and concise as we can be every time we explain. And we're going to explain it again tomorrow on the show. We're going to explain it again on Wednesday, on Thursday, and on Friday. Remember, picks are going to be open at 4:00 on Wednesday. You'll be able to start submitting your picks through the end of the show on Friday. Picks will only be accepted during show hours. So you cannot text in at midnight and say, oh, well, I made this pick at midnight.
Yeah.
We're not on the air.
See it.
Yeah, we got to be able to see it. You have to make your picks during show hours. Anything after show hours will not be accepted.
And the deadline is Friday at the end of the show.
Friday at 7:00.
Gotcha.
That's it.
I like it. Dan B, you're the man.
Yeah, and the last thing I forget his name. He calls in every week.
Delvin.
Delvin. So I know you said calling doesn't count.
Well, we're trying to get everybody.
Legacy.
We are.
But he's a legacy if he calls in.
We are
the first one.
I take that back, Dan. We are going to do our absolute best to accept call-in picks. We know that most people are going to text in their picks. A vast majority are going to text in their picks. And as a matter of fact, we're going to have we are awaiting confirmation. I got a confirmation face-to-face a couple of weeks ago that Ryan McGee from ESPN will be our weekly guest picker each and every Wednesday. So obviously his pick is going to be submitted over the phone. So we are going to accept some call-ins. But so excuse me where I said texting is the only way it's going to be accepted. Texting and live call-ins during the show will be accepted.
I'll be back here on my chalkboard.
Yeah.
And with that regard, just make sure that one of you two writes that down and gives that info to me separate, because I can't listen to every hour.
Well, that's your fault. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it is.
Well, what kind of Tolo do you think you are?
Just kidding.
I don't know. Somebody that doesn't always, reside on the ground at all times.
There you
That's
go.
fair.
Hey, I will. Hey, by the way, I mean, we can't get speakers in y'all's cockpits for wire to wire. I mean, come on. What kind of?
Actually, we lost the ability to do that recently. We had a radio that could play AM, and they all got taken out of our airplane. Yeah, so I could have been listening.
That's fantastic. All right, I'll have a piece of paper ready. I'll have something ready whether it be a
Yeah.
piece of paper or a document ready back here on Wednesday.
Okay. Yeah. Or I mean, if you could just text it right to me.
Perfect.
I'll write it down. So any version works.
Dan B, you're the man. Appreciate you, man.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Dan.
No, you guys are. But you guys have a good one.
Talk
Appreciate it.
Wednesday. DB. God,
Yep.
he's good at this.
He is.
Upset pick. He's
He
the
is.
upset pick challenge master.
So to help anybody out, if you need to know how to submit your picks, and we're going to explain all this again and again and again, but when the time comes when picks are open, we're going to need you to text in your name, your game, and what the point spread is. Now, again, as Dan B said, if you get the idea that that's a 10-point spread and it's actually a 9-point spread, we will correct it to 9 points. That way, if John texts in and he sees that on Tuesday the spread is 10 points and by Wednesday it shifts to 9, we're not going to give him the extra point because he looked at it a day early, and we're also not going to deduct a point from somebody if the line moves up.
Yeah.
It's going to be locked in, screenshot as of 3 p.m. on the day that we open up the picks. So everybody's going to get the exact same number of points. Everybody who picks that game is going to get the exact same number of points, regardless of whether you look at ESPN or you look at any one of the other different gambling websites. ESPN.com spreads are the official spreads for this contest.
I like it. I'm excited. I don't know that I'm going to do well, but guess
That's okay.
what? This kind of stuff, you know me, I like to put a little cheese on things. So this is fun to me, right?
Yeah.
I'm excited.
It's kind of like the Superdog picks. That's how this kind of works.
Man, I just I don't know. I don't know that we'll be able to pass out all the butt whoopings that
you'll get the hang of it. You'll really start to understand it by week number 3. It's a long season. A lot can happen. I've seen people, nail a couple of picks early and then not get another single one of them right for the whole rest of the season, and they wind up back at 0.
A couple of texts I want to get to real quick to clarify. Texter Diesel 10 minutes ago. What time period does first round of picks cover? Says Trey in Kentucky.
First round of picks will be unofficially week 0 of the college football season, which are the 4 games that I'm looking at right now that currently have a spread. The 4 games on Saturday, August 24th. That would be this coming Saturday. Yep. So you got 4. That's just the way the schedule works out. You only have 4 games to choose from.
Little
week.
Warm up.
Now, the week 1 of the season, which are games occurring on Thursday of next week. That'll be August 29th, Friday, August 30th, and Saturday, August 31st. That is week 1 of the Upset Picks Challenge.
Yep.
So there's week 0 and there's week 1. Thank you, college football, for making this schedule all screwy, but we officially cut it off. It's a Saturday to Saturday contest.
Diesel DB on the stream ask, am I going to still keep adding the super dog picks?
Love for you to do that, Dan. I would love for you to do that. When guys like Reese Davis and the gang on that show are making their picks, obviously they're not texting in their picks to our show.
They're not?
But we love it's fun to know that, like, hey, I'm better at picking upsets than Desmond Howard is or Reese Davis. These guys live in this world all day, every day, and I'm better than them at this contest.
No, I like it. I like it a lot. I'm ready. I'm excited. 4 games. It's just like a little warm up. Like, you'll be able to sit down and watch college football Saturday, Diesel. It won't be all day.
Yeah.
But it'll be better than nothing.
And for you Tolos who are new to the contest, still maybe just a little bit confused about how you only have 4 options for week number 1. So we're going to simplify.
I like it.
Think about it as a preseason game.
Yeah.
For you Tolos.
Sounds good. I'm excited. Hope you are as well. Reminder 71307. Start your text with the word fan starting Wednesday. That's the way you can get those picks in. Grayson Mann of TigerNet coming up next.
All you
Just 12 days out from Clemson v. Georgia, noon kickoff, Atlanta, right there at the Mercedes-Benz Dome. It's going to be a tough road for the Clemson Tigers to get this one done. We're joined right now to talk about it. Grayson Mann, new hire at TigerNet.com. First of all, Grayson, we appreciate you joining us here on the show for the very first time. Congratulations on picking up the new gig there at TigerNet. Does Clemson playing Georgia at noon, in your mind, play into their favor at all? I mean, if I'm Dabo, I finally get to play that disrespect card again, they don't think you're prime time kind of argument, if you wanted to use that for motivation for the team.
I think anything's fair game heading to this, and I appreciate the kind words for thanks for the hire, but it's a pleasure to be on. And I think for this game, I think it's not as much about the time as it is about just the atmosphere of this game. It's a top 15 matchup. The Bulldogs are the team of the decade. There's a lot that Clemson can do with this matchup to say, hey, we're maybe this close or we're right there. So I think for them, it's more of a matter of, okay, where are we after this game versus a motivation, and I'm sure Dabo will use whatever he deems necessary for this team. But I think it's an exciting matchup from just the perspective of, hey, you get to really show or really get to find out where you are very early against what likely is the best team of the country entering in a couple weeks.
You can follow him on X, on Twitter at Gray_man21. That's man with 2 N's. You know, we've talked a lot about Grayson over the last few weeks. Clemson starting off with an opponent like Georgia, it being a really good thing if you can go out there and look the part. However, the flip side of that coin is if you go out and lay an egg, that Georgia matchup being as difficult as it is in week 1 isn't an Old Dominion, right? So it's one of those situations for a team that's trying to reprove themselves. It's fascinating that Georgia game, maybe if it were a little later in the season, would be better timing for Dabo and company just to have time to get Klubnik and Riley synced up back together for year 2.
Right, and I think at the same time, maybe some fans would like that Clemson opened up against the Citadel like they do in late November, or a team maybe like App State that, in my personal opinion, fans should be taking very seriously. But I think the beauty of it is, Cole, is that Clemson fans are going to find out a lot about this team. It's going to be in your face very quickly, very immediate. And I think a team against Georgia, and then you follow it up with a home opener against App State, you get a bye, and then you get to face off Grayson McCall and NC State. It's a gauntlet in September. And I think you're going to find a lot about this team early. But I think for them, they're going to learn a lot about themselves as well. And I think that becomes pretty valuable when it comes time for the ACC stretch, where you have to go on the road and face your former quarterback in DJ Uiagalelei, when you have to go to Virginia Tech and Pittsburgh in November, where it's going to be cold, it's going to test you physically and mentally. I think facing Georgia early, they'd probably rather have it game 1 than game 5, and sort of you get to catch them off guard. You get to say, hey, we have nothing to lose here. Let's go out and see what we can get done.
Grayson Mann of TigerNet joining us here on the Fan Upstate. Football, Grayson, you know, we've always known as a game of matchups. Are there any position groups or even individual matchups where you see Clemson having an edge over Georgia, or are the Tigers basically underdogs at every phase?
You know what? I think it's fascinating. I think Clemson enters this game with the most talented linebacker on paper in Barrett Carter. And I think having him back for his senior year was such an important decision way back when. It feels like it's flown by, especially in these last couple of weeks with getting some actual football. But I think Clemson's got a real advantage of the front 7. I think you have guys like Peter Woods, TJ Parker, Barrett Carter. There's certainly talent there, I think, that Georgia maybe hasn't seen in the last couple of years. I know they've played the Alabamas. They've played a litany of teams within the SEC, but I think you get freshman All-Americans like TJ Parker, Peter Woods coming into year 2. We know what we can expect from them. And I think on the offensive side for Clemson, I think those freshman receivers, we've been hearing a lot of good reports about them in camp, especially from Dabo Sweeney. I think we may be able to see Bryant Lesko and TJ Moore have a chance to make an impact early. And for the Clemson faithful that have been waiting for that receiver, that 50-50 guy, or just an alpha, if you want to quote it like that on that side, you're going to get to see it early against a Georgia defense that's as good as it gets.
Grayson, you know what's really interesting about this game being early? A lot of people say a team can progress and get a lot better as the season goes on, and that's true. However, this game, in my mind, will tell us a lot in terms of if Clemson's a playoff team or not. Do you think this game against Georgia defines Clemson and their 2024 positioning in or outside of the college football playoff?
I think if it were still the 4-team model, I'd be more inclined to say that this is a game where we're going to learn pretty quickly if Clemson's going to be in the big dance or not. But I think if you go down the road and Clemson's 10-2 with maybe a loss to a respectable Florida State or Virginia Tech, I think there's an outside shot that they're an at-large team in the postseason. But also on the flip side, if they beat Georgia, there's still games down the stretch where Clemson can falter and end up being 9-3 or 10-2 and maybe still not able to go to the playoffs. There's just so many factors that play into it early. But I think that cushion of having 12 teams eligible for the playoff, I think even if Clemson were to drop this game, let's say 30-20, let's say that happens. Georgia makes a surge in the second half, but you saw that Clemson competed. I think there's many that would say, okay, that one loss there, if Clemson gets better as the season progresses, it would be fair to say, hey, if Georgia's still the number one team in the country, that they're absolutely a team that's deserving to be in the playoff.
Grayson, David tweeted about 10 days ago that Vic Burley, defensive tackle, was injured last week. Dabo said that he's back. He's really firing right out of the gates. Any concern for you that Vic Burley is not going to be 100% 12 days from now?
And I think a lot could still happen within 12 days. They're still practicing, but David's right on the money with that. Dabo, of course, told us on a Thursday report last week that Vic Burley is a guy that you notice immediately and that he was a contributor on a couple big plays to start out the scrimmage. And so injuries are the name of the game. There's a lot of areas that I'm sure Clemson fans are going to be watching very closely. That we don't get an injury report every day on Twitter like some NFL accounts like to put out, especially when I'm watching on NFL Sundays for my Patriots. I'm like, okay, who's questionable, who's doubtful, and all that. So I think when it comes down to it, a lot can still happen in 12 days. And I think for Clemson fans, they're crossing their fingers because I think from what we've heard from the coaching staff, Vic Burley's going to be a nice piece for this defense.
Grayson Mann, TigerNet.com, joining us right here on the Fan Upstate. Grayson, for those that you talk to on a daily basis who cover the Clemson beat day to day, is there any sense of a different relationship or a different way that Garrett Riley, the offensive coordinator, and Cade Klubnik, the second-year quarterback, are going about their day-to-day business this year compared to last year?
Yeah, maybe not be people that I talk to on the beat specifically, but what we're hearing from the players. And I think every year, Cole, we get the same, something's different about this team. We get that same energy, same talking points that we usually get in the summer. But something that really stuck out to me of what Dabo Swinney said in these two scrimmages is that compared to last year where the offense was at in year one with Garrett Riley, is that this team's making less mistakes. They're more mature and comfortable. He really made sure to emphasize the comfort. And the players have too. Jake Berney-Stoll, we talked to today, said it's just so much easier to go out there when you're looking at the installs that day and you go, I recognize that. That's familiar. We can go out there and perfect it. We can run it. The first time we're running it, we're not learning it. We're just trying to get better at it. And there's something, I think, valuable with this offense. They're returning a litany of starters. You got the quarterback that isn't having a third coordinator in 3 years versus having Garrett Riley in year two. There's certainly a value there. So I think with this offense, they're more comfortable. They're a little more comfortable in their own skin, which I think is important. And when it comes down to the details of fumbles on the goal line against Duke or a blindside block that makes all the difference against Florida State, maybe those mistakes and errors that are easily correctable have now been corrected.
Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com joins us here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson on the Fan Upstate. Barrett Carter, the only Clemson player put on the preseason All-America team, first or second team. Is that fair or not that only one Clemson Tiger listed among the two best in the two deep at these positions?
I think it's fascinating that Clemson's in a position like this because I remember growing up and you could probably count on numbers on your hand how many All-Americans Clemson potentially had in the preseasons. And Peter Woods, obviously, we've seen what he can do, freshman All-American. He's obviously been a very touted prospect even when he was in high school, and now that continues into college. And so I guess it's up to Clemson at this point to prove whether that's fair or not. I think it's maybe not for me to say just because of based on what we've seen in fall camp. We don't have 2 hours of access in practice where we get to see each single rep individually and be able to account it and note it. So I think for the writers that are coming up with these lists, it's just a matter of the preseason becomes a big guessing game. And I think for Peter Woods, it's a big name that most probably recognize. And so, yeah, you could say, well, what about potentially Phil Maffa or let's say a Barrett Carter? I think it just comes down to who's writing this, who's paying attention. And it's up to Clemson, a team that only won 9 games last year. That's many are used to them being in the playoffs. It's up to them to prove that, I think, in their eyes.
Grayson, I liked the really liked the story that you and David did a few weeks ago with Jeff Scott. Very intriguing to see him still in the community, obviously in a different space now in real estate. I hate to be this guy, and I don't mean to bring the temperature of the conversation down, but if year 2 of Lincoln Riley and Cade Klubnik don't go well, is Jeff Scott staying around for maybe a reunion in your mind, or is that off the table?
And this is one of the things we asked him if there was going to be a return to coaching, and he told us absolutely not. He's very happy where he is right now. He's in a good situation, and we talked to him, and then anyone that hasn't listened yet, you can check it out on TigerNet.com, our conversation with Jeff Scott. He just talks about it's a less stressful life, I would think, and he's doing a lot of great things. We're at one of their construction plots a couple weeks ago, and man, I tell you, with a view like that, it's tough to leave that kind of role. And so I think for Jeff, he's in a good place. He went to actually a couple practices. He was able to talk to them, but he says as of right now, the itch really isn't there, and he doesn't foresee a return to coaching anytime soon.
Grayson, you talked about the comfortability of the players in Garrett Riley's system here in year 2. To your mind, is it going to be, and you really can't put it this way, the same thing, the same system that he ran last year? Because coaches are always trying to figure out ways to add wrinkles and change things. But from what you've seen in practice, do you see any change in scheme or change in creativity that fans are going to be able to notice as well?
I'm probably going to be calling myself out for this because I talk about the same cliche storylines we hear, but I think the difference for me is a difference in attitude and a difference in confidence with this group. Just watching Klubnik and stretching, warm-ups alone, there's a different sense to him, and I think that's that comfortability that we've been talking about in this quick segment that you guys have is for Klubnik. I talked to him last week, I believe, and he said that the thing that for him this offseason, it was all about the details and trying to figure out how do we make sure those are the routine things that we're doing. Because last year for Clemson, they're one of the worst teams in the country at holding on to the football, and those would be pretty important details to remember if you want to make it back to the postseason. So I think you're going to see a lot of the same stuff from Garrett Riley. You may see different personnel that maybe there's a concept that we had last year, or Riley had last year, that didn't necessarily pan out, but you had a Wesco, a Moore, a Christian Bentacore in there, and you go, whoa, something just popped there. And so I think you're going to see the relatively same things from Garrett Riley in year 2, but I think with the added personnel he has, the more familiarity he has with the starters that are returning with his quarterback, I think you're just going to see it's going to probably feel different, but maybe some of those route concepts, those schemes, I think may be the same.
Grayson, my last question for you, timetable-wise for Clemson, when do they turn the page to Georgia? And even though they haven't turned the page to Georgia yet, you know, that they tell us, the coaching staff will say they're focused on themselves right now, but have you seen any hints dropped in of the scrimmages practice, the people you've talked to after practice, of them already doing a little preparation?
Right, and Sweeney told us on Saturday and Thursday that the scrimmages were sort of the bookend to what they call their version of the preseason, and that now it's time to focus on the Bulldogs. And so I think slowly but surely, it's not officially game week, but I think for the coaching staff, the players, they can see that red G is slowly but surely creeping up. It's rising in the horizon. So I think they're very much aware of it. I think the coaching staff has started preparation. Sweeney said after the second scrimmage, it basically becomes game week. And so it's an extended stretch, of course, but the Bulldogs are certainly within their rearview mirrors.
Grayson, what has Dabo done to try to motivate these players that little bit extra going into this game? Have they been, you hear stories about coaches blasting the opposing fight song through the PA system over and over again. Anything at all that they might be using in practice to gain a little bit of an edge against Georgia?
Well, I've seen Dabo wear a shirt that just simply says finish on it. And I think that's been, and I talked to Keith Adams really right as fall camp was beginning, asking what was going on with that shirt. And he said, that's the word that Dabo's been giving us this year is finish. And that a lot of the times last year, and the players have been pretty honest about how last year sometimes that didn't work out, and it translated to losses on the road against Miami and NC State. Obviously, everyone has the Duke memories. Certainly, if you're a Clemson fan, it's probably nightmare fuel at this point, and they're hoping to avoid that against Georgia. But I think that the motivation is correcting the errors of last year, and I think it's been very evident talking to the players, coaches, other members of the beat that last year very much haunted, I think, a lot of the members of that roster. And I think that word finish reverberates through those facilities. And I think they're going to do their best to potentially rectify last year and move on to 2024 and try to get back to the postseason for the first time since 2020.
Grayson, great stuff as always. Have a little fun when you talk to David and tell him you did so good that he has been replaced. And let us know get back to us on his response there. Hey, we appreciate you hopping on, man.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. That's Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com. As I said, David Hood scheduled every Monday, Diesel, at 4:20 to join us. Fantastic interview. David started last week, and second week already calling out. I mean, come on. What kind of
How about that?
David already? He did have a good excuse. Had some dental work, he said, and Grayson Mann did a fantastic job of filling in for David at TigerNet.
Twice a year?
Twice a year.
Do you like flying?
I love it.
I still don't love it. We were flying, to me, any kind of light turbulence
Oh, yeah.
gets me anxious. I hate it. I'm like, as soon as we start feeling any bumps, I'm like, pilot, get us the fuck out of this.
Yeah.
I don't like this.
I love flying. I don't know why.
I can't say as I've ever experienced heavy turbulence.
Yeah.
But we were flying into Dallas, and we were banking left on our descent in. Yeah. And all of a sudden, it feels like if you've got your seat up high and you don't realize it's coming, and
drop
just goes.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like, a drop.
Yeah.
And the plane could have dropped 25 feet. I wouldn't know.
You never know.
I would not. I mean, to me, it felt like it dropped 100 feet. I'm like, holy shit, we're going down.
We're done.
But the girl next to me started puking her guts out on the descent.
I have never had that happen.
I've only thrown up in a plane from being really drunk the night before. And that had nothing to do with turbulence. It was just, I was hungover as shit. But yeah, girl next to me she grabbed her bag. I thought the dude in front of me was going to throw up too, but he was just up there eating
that's bad.
Eating something, and he was using the vomit bag as a trash bag. I was like, oh no! Don't tell me that guy's about to start throwing up, and looks like he's cracking sunflower seeds or something like that, and throwing his vomit bag. But then the girl next to me, I got my noise canceling earbuds in, and all I hear is.
Oh, that gives me goosebumps.
I was like, I can't look at you.
Oh, God,
Don't
no.
start puking, because I'm going to start puking.
Yep. Texter says, is Mark Ryan going to guest pick?
Hey, I'll text him the first week and say, hey, we're doing the contest 4 p.m. Eastern. He's Eastern time zone as well.
Yeah.
I'm not going to – I'll text him one time and say, hey, we're doing the contest. What's your pick?
Yeah.
If you want to be in, send us your picks.
He might 1 week.
Yeah. But I'm not going to chase him down week after week.
No, I wouldn't. Diesel, I have had over the weekend an epiphany. I have realized something that I never knew.
Did you go to a doctor to get that checked out?
Not yet.
Oh,
Holding off.
epiphany.
Yeah, I'm holding off on the doctor's visit. I do not think NFL preseason football is any different than a joint practice. I understand the points and the purpose of NFL preseason football, but I just don't know that there's any difference between that actual game in the preseason and them having a joint practice between the two, because they're not there to win. So if they're not there to win, what can't you accomplish in a preseason, or what can't you accomplish in a joint practice that you have to go and get announcers and stadiums and lights so we can have a preseason game and sell tickets?
Well, what you accomplish is having fans around the game to affect, noise, potential distractions, nerves, all of those things. That's the big difference. Now, I've never watched a joint practice. I don't know if they play an actual scrimmage game in joint practice or if they set it up like a practice where, for example, the offense has X number of reps to try these 5 or 6 different plays.
It's usually like that.
Okay, so you're not working with down and distance. You're not working with time management skills. It's nothing like a preseason game.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what these things accomplish for other than the purpose of the players trying to make the rosters. I get it. But when you throw the starters out there, they're going to get the same reps in a preseason joint practice than they are in a preseason game. I say, you know what my plan is, my solution? Cancel the preseason.
Fine by me.
Let's cancel it.
If none of the teams are going to start their starters at all, go ahead and cancel it. What's the point? Just have joint practices.
Joint practices, no need for preseason games. If you want to have 1 week of preseason, that's fine. But what are we accomplishing in 3 weeks of running out there with these new kickoff rules and Patrick Mahomes playing 4 snaps? I don't know. I say cancel them.
Well, I will say this. I mean, you can certainly practice preseason. You can practice the new kickoff rules in your camp, and they have been, right? It's not like they're just hearing about this now for the first time ahead of preseason games. But the difference is you're doing it live, not to go all Bill O'Reilly on you, but you're doing it live. So that's the big difference. It's you can watch practice, you can watch joint practices, and you can get a sense of a player's skill level, but you don't know their, IRL, as the kids say, in real life reaction until you put them in the closest thing to a game scenario that you can put them into. Obviously, you have to have your roster down and complete before week 1 of the season. So this is as close as it gets to a real game scenario as you can get. And I think the Carolina Panthers, Dave Canales, has made a big mistake by not putting the starters in, even for a series or two.
See, I think they should this week. This is the week I think the Carolina Panthers should see some action, Diesel, week 3. Because you have, a week and a half off, 2 weeks off from your last postseason or preseason game to your first regular season game.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to see the latest and best of my team, also give them a chance to carry in some confidence. I'm not saying play the whole game.
Yeah.
But what if Bryce Young went out there and played a half on Saturday night?
So
you never know.
The Carolina Panthers, help me out here because I didn't watch this game. I was out on vacation. I didn't watch.
Yeah.
Did the Panthers kick 2 field goals in the fourth quarter, or did they score a touchdown and miss the PAT?
I don't remember the fourth quarter.
Okay.
I wasn't intoxicated. I'm just saying I don't exactly remember. Don't read me
so
wrong.
they scored
there.
a touchdown. Dylan Johnson, 2-yard touchdown run, 7 plays, 66 yards. Carolina Panthers were one of my favorite words in the English language, feckless.
Yeah.
For the entirety of that game.
That's the drive that – I'm sorry, you're right, because that's the drive that Dave Canales talked about and being excited because that's what we're made of. That's what we're looking for, and there was a lot to build off of that drive.
That's what we're made of.
Yeah.
What? Who?
Yeah.
The guys that you're not planning on playing at all this year? The guys that are like 3rd and 4th string? That's not what you're made of. That's what your backups are made of. And I look at it like this. The Carolina Panthers embarrass the fans on a week in, week out basis and have done so for the past couple of seasons. Ownership all the way down. They're trying to rectify that by bringing in Dave Canales, but we don't know who and what Dave Canales is going to be yet. The Carolina Panthers as an organization, as a franchise, owe everything to the fans who have stuck with them through this embarrassment of the past 2 seasons. So you got to give them something to sink their teeth into. You got to give them something to be proud of and hopeful of. If not, you're going to give them another feckless performance in week 3 of the preseason, and you're going to limp into the regular season without any real reps under your belt. And I think that's a mistake.
I think they should play in the in preseason game 3. I want to see some starters. I'm not saying the whole game, but let's get out there for just a little while. Tuesday edition of Wire to Wire coming your way tomorrow.
Tyler.